Welcome to episode 10 of the Zodiac Files. I'm your host, Ross. Just hit the 1K milestone. Like, sub, share. Sorry about the delay. We had some connection issues that we had to work through. We're past it. The man of the hour, one of the best researchers in the field, one of my favorites, Mike Rodelli. It's the author of In the Shadow of Mount Diablo, the shocking true identity of the Zodiac killer suspect, Kjell Qvale. Maybe have Mike check me on that pronunciation. I'm not sure if I got that right. Links in the description. Go subscribe to Mike's channels. He's had a bunch of new videos lately. His website, mikerodelli.com, and the link to buy the book on Amazon. Go check that out. I know this is the second edition, Mike. I quite prefer this title and, of course, menacing cover art. So go check that out, guys. Without further ado, shout out to everybody in the chat. Appreciate you keeping the conversation going, Ray, on the Super Bowl. Let's get Mike in here, and shout out to everybody who's been reaching out lately. Mike Rodelli.
Hey, how are you?
Zodiac researcher. Great, man. Appreciate you coming on the channel.
Sure, no problem. My pleasure.
Glad we were able to work through our issues there. So I know you've had a bunch of stuff.
Our audio issues, not our video issues, but our audio issues anyway.
Yeah, for sure. So we've generally resolved it. Shout out to everybody who's coming in the chat. If you have anything good, I'll welcome to ask Mike your questions, should he care to answer them. But we're going to start with mine. Have a good mix of everything. I definitely posted my review of the book. I don't know if you saw it yet, Mike, but I'll shoot it over to you. And I saw you had some
I did.
Pretty high profile reviews on there. You had Jim Dean and a guy that you've done some excellent research with. But we're going to come to the Presidio Heights later on, and I felt that was, kind of the pinnacle of the book, in my opinion, especially the work you guys did with the Robbins interviews as well as the Falk interview, which totally changed my personal perception of Presidio Heights. We're just going to jump ahead real quick here, and then we'll go back through the canonicals and all that stuff you guys want to hear us talk about. But I got to tell you right off the rip, Mike, I was one of those guys going around saying, well, with all that fog in the Presidio, you couldn't possibly see what his clothes looked like when he was walking down the street. I was telling everybody that until Druser sent me you and Jim's interview with Falk, and there was absolutely no fog that night. So that was something I got completely wrong. That was on me. So we went over Mike's research. We fixed it.
Well, not only that, but Lindsay Robbins watched Zodiac walk from the corner of Washington and Cherry to the corner of Jackson and Cherry. We would never been able to see them if it was foggy out that night. Plus, I wouldn't be able to see the cab if it were foggy out. So
great point. Yeah, no, my whole. I mean, I was just repeating internet things, and you know how Zodiac research goes. There's a lot of things I did great on.
Graysmith. Graysmith.
Yeah,
the street was wet with fog. That's what he said. So
yeah, there you go. That's probably where I got it from. Who knows? I don't know where I picked it up. And a lot of issues with Graysmith. I've read 1986, whatever that was, Zodiac, and I've also read In the Shadow of Mount Diablo. And between the two, I quite prefer this. If you guys have only read Graysmith, I want you to go read Mike next. I mean, I know you posted the list of circumstantial evidence, which also came out of the book, Mike, on Facebook. I mean, we can anything you want to pepper in from that at any point. Otherwise, we can just go straight to Lake Herman Road. However you want to take it.
Well, I guess there's one thing I'll throw in. It's just amazing how this research just keeps being ongoing. Just when you think you've done everything over the course of 20-something years, something new pops up. And earlier this year, I was able to find out, because Qvale in his autobiography has a picture of a hill climb race, they call it, that they did up the side of Mount Diablo. But he doesn't mention he mentions the year, I think, but he doesn't mention the date. So I had no idea what the date was. I had a feeling I knew what it was, but I wasn't sure, and just because it was elusive, and I didn't really concentrate on finding it. It took a long time. It took me till this year for actually someone, I forget his name now, but the guy who lives in the area of Mount Diablo sent me an email and told me to look in the July, I think it was the July, let's see, 26th or 17th, 30, 31, July 2nd, I think, edition of the Chronicle for information about this race. And the first line in the article says last week. So a week from Sunday was in June, and it was actually June 26th, 1949. That's the same date as Qvale's letter to the editor in 1969, the same date as Zodiac's Mount Diablo letter in 1970, And in 1971, Qvale was able to get a couple of articles in the British newspapers with Jensen Motors, company that he had bought there, that had the name of one of the Zodiac victims, one of the Zodiac's
Yep.
first victims at Lake Herman Road, which we're going to talk about, as the name of the company. So June 26, I actually was able to nail down another date, another year, which was June 26, 1949. So that's in addition to what's in my book. That isn't in my book because I hadn't gotten June 26, 1949 yet when I wrote the book. But go ahead to Lake Herman.
No, that's amazing, and I think you did an excellent job of lining up the dates. I mean, I'm not totally sold, but you moved my needle quite a bit because I didn't know anything about yours other than it was your suspect and the commercial from whatever bank that was that Voight posted.
Yeah, that he had a thick Norwegian accent that everybody talks about that he didn't have in order to eliminate him.
I don't know. We'll get into the Norwegian stuff, and then of course I wasn't totally sold on the runes, but I mean you deep dive that as well. There's just a lot there. I do like the UFO thing. I'm a big UFO guy. I don't usually mix my UFO with Zodiac, but that's some crossover we have here. I mean particularly interesting. I don't know if everybody knows this if they haven't read your book, but you actually had the chance for the face-to-face with your suspect, and it was quite an interesting interaction the way you recounted it, like especially how he downplayed the UFO thing when you asked him about it in person, but clearly spent all that time with the media run on it when it happened, so it was definitely a big pinnacle event to him back then, and then he just kind of brushed it off to you like, oh yeah, no, whatever, and it was like, yeah, but dude, you went and did that media run about it, so...
He made it sound like he made it sound like he waited a few days or a week and didn't hear about it in the paper, so he decided to call the media. But that's not how it actually happened, because he had the sighting on July 5th, 1947, and the first article in the Alameda Times-Star was on July 7th, so just 2 days. So
he went straight
it wasn't anything like what he was describing as. What's that?
He went straight to the media with it.
Yeah, he went straight to the media.
Yeah. He tried to pretend it was it was not a big thing, and I was like, I mean, I think you got him on a lot of the stuff, and we can come to that later. But super interesting that you actually confronted your suspect.
Well, I think that he probably thought I was an internet troll and didn't have the guts to meet him face to face and accuse him, but he found out differently.
Yeah, he certainly did. No, I totally respect that. I mean, I don't think anybody can really downtrod that. I think a lot of people in your position probably would have never taken the meeting if I had to guess. Shout out to everybody who came through: Holly Toshki, Dion Walker, everybody else that's live in the chat. We'll take your questions later on. So first, before we even get to Lake Herman Road, because other than Riverside, which is not something I want to spend a lot of time on, Mike, I've essentially, even though I sent you my episode 3 on Riverside, where I'm at on Zodiac is, until we get something concrete on Riverside, I really don't even care to talk about it, although you and I did have an interesting discussion about the Tucker torpedo behind the scenes. We can briefly touch over that, but what I want to know is, as far as Ray Davis, the Swindles, 62, 63, 64, Dominguez Edwards, do you have any interest in those so-called non-canonical Zodiac crimes in regards to your suspect? I don't know if you've ever looked at it.
I'm aware of the Swindle one, and I'm aware of the one from near Santa Barbara. I mean, I think the one from Santa Barbara is interesting. The problem is that none of these crimes have led to a solution to the case. Right. It could be. I think it might be very likely there was Zodiac at Santa Barbara. With Qvale, he used to travel around everywhere, so I wouldn't put it past him to be anywhere at any given time. I was not able to place him in Santa Barbara at the time of that murder, but that's a difficult thing to do with a person, with an individual when you're an amateur, unless there's something public about it. Unless he was at some public event, it's difficult. But the swindle thing is another thing that's interesting. But I'm not really. The other one was it was a cab driver, right? The middle one.
Yes. So that's Ray Davis. I have a particular interest in that just because of your excellent deep dive in Presidio Heights, which I do consider you the expert on. And in my opinion, even Tom Voight, tends to agree with me on that. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that publicly, but the Ray Davis is almost an exact parallel of Paul Stine, much how Dominguez Edwards, like you just said, Santa Barbara, Gavita Beach is almost an exact parallel of Lake Berryessa. So as far as like the MO, it's undeniable. It's like he either had knowledge of it or he did it. There's not much, in between,
Well, what's a funny thing is that I'm always talking about chickens and eggs with the Zodiac case, because like they say that Zodiac divided his first letter into 3 parts, and that's something novel. And because Geik was working at a newspaper where they had a 3-part article or something like that, that means that Geik was Zodiac. I had to bring up Riverside, but in Riverside, what were the Bayside to Die letters? They were sent to 3 different people. Anything that was done in Riverside or anywhere else prior to the Zodiac case that was in the newspaper, Zodiac could have known about. So he could have easily imitated things like that. So
sure.
This
in the case,
possibility of imitating.
Sure. In the case of Riverside, you're 100% correct because there's the True Detective article. So the problem is law enforcement first said, well, the writer of the confession letter is absolutely the killer of Sherry because he knew only things that the killer would know. But I'd have to look which officer that was that made that statement. But the problem was the True Detective article had already come out before that. So, and we're almost positive Zodiac was reading that or had some connection to the True Detective articles because of all those other cases he referenced. But right. I mean, briefly on Riverside, and again, I don't want to waste a lot of time on it, but I mean, you do have Qvale at the race. Was it Graysmith or whoever placed Arthur Lee Allen at the race? So no,
Arthur Lee Allen placed himself. Arthur Lee Allen placed himself in Riverside, and no one was able to prove that. I don't think.
Okay, so yeah,
to my knowledge,
he said some strange things as well as Don Cheney, but you definitely have Qvale. Is it Kel or Shell?
I was gonna tell you the way you pronounce it is the first name sounds like a seashell. It's Shell. Yeah. And the second one sounds like an Italian name. It's like Cavalli, Cavalli. In fact, when I dictate text in my phone and I use his name, it always comes up as Cavalli. So it's Shell Qvale.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Well, a couple Italians like us, I should be able to manage the last name, especially with mine being Geraci, which is a Sicilian abomination.
There you
Kjell Qvale. So we do have him at the race. You and I had the conversation about the Tucker torpedo. Here's my only problem, and I personally think I don't hear much about the car connection, just like I didn't hear much about the Mount Diablo connection, other than the Mount Diablo letter, the bus bomb, whatever what everybody talks about. But I thought you nailed both in the book. The only problem I have with okay, he's at the race, supposedly ALA puts himself at the race, is an importer, at least the way you painted Shell in the book. He's like an automobile expert. So why would somebody who knows that the Tucker torpedo is a 48 car in the United States, rare car, gonna go do this random crime against a RCC co-ed, knowing that that car's so rare it could easily be identified? In my opinion, somebody like Shell, he could take the most common car. He could take one of those Volkswagens that that everyone drive that he's importing, and then it's not that easy to narrow it down. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. Maybe we have a disagreement. I don't know. But I just don't see him taking the super rare, almost one of a kind car. It doesn't seem to track. Unless I'm off.
Well, here's the thing. I don't necessarily think that Zodiac killed Sherry Jo Bates. So the profiling is different. I talked to Richard Walter about the profile. I think I talk about it in my book. Or at least I talked about it in the previous book. I think that Zodiac was a power assertive killer. I was reading Mike Kelleher and David Van Nuys book. This is the Zodiac speaking. You ever read that?
I haven't read that, but the names sound familiar.
Okay, yeah, that was the book that Mike Kelleher was writing when I first started in 1999. That's how I got to talking to Mike Kelleher, because he was hanging around the case, doing research for his book. In that book, I happened to be rereading it the other day, and I forget the pages, 57 to 58 or something. David Van Nuys must mention power 5 times. And I think that power assertive is the correct profile of Zodiac, because when Richard Walter came up with that profile, when we were talking about it, he was mentioning all the traits of a power assertive killer, and they matched the things that people have been saying about Zodiac for years. So I think Zodiac was a power assertive. The one from Riverside was probably what's called a power reassurance killer, someone who was not sure of himself. They call him a gentleman rapist. I could see someone like Ross Sullivan being possibly that person. He wasn't sure enough of himself to be able to walk up to Sherry Jo Bates and ask her for a date, so he disables her car. He gets her to walk with him. He tells her how he feels about her. She tells him to go away in maybe not so polite terms. And in order to save face, he kills her. So I'm not looking at Qvale, even though Qvale was in Riverside that weekend. I think that the importance of that is that he was there to be influenced by that case. The fact that there was a Volkswagen involved, the fact that it had to do with disabling a car, all of that stuff, I think would have influenced him. I don't think he necessarily killed her. So the Tucker torpedo, I would envision as having possibly been, if Graysmith is even right about that,
No, because
instead of
it
it being a
comes back.
Studebaker.
Yes, you got it. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's the Studebaker, yeah. The
Right. In
oxidized.
the book, he says it's a Studebaker. And then when he writes the second book, when he writes the Zodiac Unmasked, he says it's a Tucker torpedo. And
Yeah.
when I read that, I almost fell out of my chair because I couldn't believe that such a unique car. There's only like 71 Tucker torpedoes. There was a movie about Tucker several years ago, and there was only like 71 Tucker torpedoes made, and there was only a few of them that would match that, that geographic location and also that color, and maybe
Yep.
a little bit not taken care of well if it was rusty a little bit or whatever, the oxidized paint or whatever.
Yep.
Oh, okay. My computer just went off. It went to sleep, and it scared me for a second. So I think that they could have narrowed down if it was truly was a Tucker torpedo, they could have tried to narrow down the field of who owned that car, and if that was their killer, that might have been a big mistake he may have made by driving such a distinctive car. Not that it was Qvale, but whoever had killed her.
Yeah, 100%. Now, it sounds like me and you are generally in 100% agreement. Now, could you, based on what you just said, because in the book you said that he was there for the race, and then if I'm not mistaken, he was there for a separate event as well. So could you have him like we just said, not necessarily doing the crime itself, but perhaps sending the confession letter or sending some of the letters?
Well, let's see, the confession letter.
I
don't know that. Well, if the confession letter was written by the killer, then it wouldn't be Qvale if he didn't kill her. So, the whole thing about I think
what I'm saying is, how do we know that though? Couldn't they be two separate people, like the killer and then for instance, the Zodiac or your suspect?
Yeah. I absolutely think that. That's what I think. I think there's two different people. I think there's the killer who would have known how he disabled the car. Though the little article appeared in the New York Times about something about the distributor or something. The only clue that was really in there, I think, that distinguishes whether the guy knew what he was talking about or not, is the phone call. Was a phone call made to the police or to the police chief or whoever it was made to?
Yeah, and we don't know.
If that call was made, then that person wrote the letter. Who wrote the letter was the killer. If not, then all bets are off, and you don't know who it was.
Yeah, but, okay, yeah, for sure. You and I are actually much closer on that than I thought. As we're generally in the same space on that.
Yeah, I'm not accusing Qvale of having murdered Sherry Jo Bates.
Sure. Cool. Well, that one's out of the way for me. I
think it's pretty amazing that someone who lived at Presidio Heights was actually in Riverside and can be placed definitely in Riverside on the weekend that she was killed.
No,
that's something I've always thought was significant.
I'm not discounting it. It's interesting. I mean, the fact that you even have him at Presidio Heights, although he lives there, I mean, you've actually placed a suspect at one of the Zodiac crimes, which I don't know of, and I don't think you do either of anyone else that's ever actually done that. So, I mean, that right there kind of leads some credence. But let's just, anybody, you guys could keep the comments coming. Let us know how we're doing. Let's just go straight to Lake Herman Road. This one, it does have like the most problems out of any of the other ones, just because he does wait to take credit for it till after Blue Rock Springs. But one thing that I'm into, and I'm noticing like a lot of the other Zodiac researchers are like about 50-50 on this, but you did cover it in the book, is the William Crowe thing, the supposed car chase before Lake Herman Road. And like I said, I do think you nailed the car connection. I've always thought there was a car connection. I think you probably did the best job of articulating it. So just what you think of that supposed car chase story, because let's keep it real, Mike. Crowe does change the story quite a few times after the fact.
Right.
I'm not totally discrediting him, but
it's interesting that Holly Tosky is on, because she sent me she forwarded me an article that I needed about. Well, I think it was about. I think it was about Lake Herman Road too. No, I'm sorry. I had the one from Lake Herman Road. She forwarded me the one about Blue Rock Springs. But at any rate, so William Crowe is out with his girlfriend that night. She is originally from Napa. She was living in San Francisco when she was visiting Vallejo. And he's driving a car. All we knew was it was a sports car initially. All I knew was it was a sports car for years. I didn't know anything about what type of car it was. And he's parked in the same clearing where David and Betty Lou would eventually park. And he has the car facing out. I think he has the headlights on, so they're across the road. So when the guy comes from the direction of Benicia and drives towards Vallejo, he goes through the headlights and he can see what's in the car, or who's in the car. And he said in those days there were so few people driving around in those days. They usually knew everybody, but he didn't know this person. And then the guy stops and he puts the backup lights on and he starts creeping back towards them. And this gave Crowe an eerie feeling. So he put the car in gear and he took off down Lake Herman Road. Mm-hmm. Now, in his initial report to Les Lundblad, a couple of days after the murders, he said that the car never gained on him. They followed them, and they're going at a high rate of speed, but they never gained on him. And then when they got to there's a turnoff just before you get to Route 680, where you go make a turn to the right, or a turnoff to the right that goes off, and it goes towards Benicia. When he got to that turnoff, he waited to the last second, then veered the car. He had a sports car, so it handled very well. He veered it into onto the off ramp to go to Benicia, and the other car continued straight ahead. Now, initially, the car is stated to be a blue Valiant, and when Les writes the report, and when the report is on the internet, he says they and them. So there was multiple people in the car. There wasn't just one person in the car. So this is the first inkling that we may have of there being more than one Zodiac. If that was Zodiac, there are apparently two people in the car. And then he changed his story later where there was only one person in the car. He had short hair and glasses like Zodiac. It was the white Chevy that everybody else saw. But I think that the more reliable account is the one that he originally gave. Just intuitively, it should be the more reliable account. But not only that, but he was interviewed by the newspaper on July 6th, I think it was. No, I'm sorry. I'm getting my crimes confused. He was interviewed by the newspaper like on December 23rd or something, just a few days after the murders. And he said that the car, he said in the interview, he said the car never gained on them, which is exactly what he said to Les Lundblad. The whole thing about the car gaining on him and almost driving him off the road and all that stuff was later. So I think that little piece of information lets us know that what was in Les's report was probably true. Plus, if I can go on a little bit more, I have another thing to add to that.
Sure.
Okay. Les Lundblad, by the time he spoke to Crow, Les Lundblad had heard about a white Chevy from Bingo Wesher, and on the day, I think the day after the murders, and from the two hunters, Connolly and Gasser, they all saw a white Chevy parked in the area about 9 o'clock. And so Les Lundblad would have had two people telling about a white Chevy. By the time Crow comes along, if he told them about a white Chevy, why would I can't think of any reason why Les would have changed it to a blue Valiant, because a white Chevy would have given him another clue to the same car. That's a lead, and that's an important thing in an investigation where there's really no clues. You have a white Chevy that's very suspicious. Why Les would have changed it to a blue Valiant, I can't imagine. So I think that he did say blue Valiant. He didn't say white Chevy. It seems like later on, maybe after he read Graysmith or he got confused or whatever, or intentionally, I can't say, changed his story to make it sound more like the Zodiac, than it did before.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I personally, have always thought something happened there, because I don't see the story just coming out of nowhere, but I know because of the fact that he changed the statements that other people are just kind of, he's adding on to the tall tale, so to speak. I mean, just to play devil's advocate, because Kjell is essentially an expert level car racer and a driver. I can't think of any reason why he couldn't have gained on him unless there was a second person in the car weighing it down, as you just said, Well,
if he's in this Valiant, or if he's in a Valiant, it's not the same as a sports car, I guess. So a sports car is going to be faster.
Sure.
So maybe he couldn't gain on him. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's and again, like Lake Herman Road, like I said, of all the ones who of all the canonicals who people think, one of them maybe could not be the Zodiac or whatever, and I think all four of them are, but I think Lake Herman Road probably has the most probability of not being, just because since we're on the topic, what do you make of this theory? I don't know if you saw the Myth of the Zodiac documentary that came out on Peacock.
No, I didn't watch that.
Yeah. So then maybe you've heard this. It wasn't just in that. Maybe you've heard it before. The idea that the shots fired came from the passenger side of the car at Lake Herman Road. Would that give you another hint of two? Well,
there's no proof of that. That the one shell casing was found 20 feet from David's car, and like everyone always said, it could have. When these shell casings come out, my friend Jim is an expert on ballistics. He's always told me when these shell casings come out, they can go anywhere. They can bounce around, and if they hit the roof of the car, they could zing another 20 feet. So, it's possible that the car was intervening between the shot and the the fence or whatever, and the shot just the shell casing banged out of the gun, hit the car, and just skidded off about 20 feet. So there's no, most of the shell cases are found right next to David's body.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess if the person was initially on the passenger side and then walked around to the driver's side, but I mean, there's no proof of that.
Right.
It's just speculation, and it's based on basically well, so there's a shell casing, I think 14 feet too. So it's basically 2 shell casings that ended up far away, and the rest of them were very close to David's body. So, and then one in the car. So, I don't think that there's any there's any real evidence. This is just speculation that that there was someone got out of the passenger side and started shooting. Just to go back to the car for a minute. So,
Sure.
One thing that we've never known is the identity of the woman who was in the car with Crow. That woman's name has never come out. There was not a police report that I've seen from her. She was living in San Francisco at the time, so it's possible that she bought and it turned out to be a British sports car. Crow told Jim Dean and Lyndon Lafferty in 2005 that the car was either an MG or a Triumph, so it was a British car. That's why he was playing around with the toggle switches. He wasn't tuning the motor. He was playing around with, there was toggle switches on the dashboard as opposed to the pull in, pull out, push in lights and things like that are on American cars. So he was familiarizing himself with the dashboard. And if she bought the car in San Francisco, who else do you think she would have bought it from but Kjell Qvale, because he had the biggest British sports car showroom in San Francisco. So I would love to speak to the woman who was in the car, if she's still alive. She would be in her 70s now, probably. And, it'd be interesting to talk to her and find out where she purchased that car.
Yeah, 100%.
You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. You still got me?
The video just went out on my phone.
I'm still here. Can you still hear? Can you guys still hear me in the chat? And let me know how my volume sounds, guys.
Could you hear me what I just said?
Yeah, we heard everything. You came through perfectly clear.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess my phone was refreshing. So she could have very well purchased that car from Qvale's dealership in San Francisco, which would make him even recognize the car more as something that he actually sold, and maybe that's why he chased it.
For sure. I mean, like I said, you absolutely nailed the car connection in the book. I'm hoping to get into it when we do Lake Berryessa, but what you came up with the car that Brian Hartnell was driving, that was an employee of Qvale. I don't know if that is something or not, but that was literally incredible sleuthing. I had never heard that before your research. That was insane. I mean, we could, unless you have a comment on it now, we could just come to it later at Lake Berryessa.
Well, someone actually sent me. I think it was Chris McRae from Canada sent me the impound report on Hartnell's car. And the names were blacked out. The last names were blacked out. But when I saw the first name, I forgot what the first name was, like I think Dennis or something, whatever it was. And it was blacked out. I assumed it was Dennis Hartnell, who was the owner of the car, maybe Brian's father, but it turns out it was a guy who used to work for Qvale at Riviera Motors in Portland, who owned the car.
Bruce
so there was a connection
Christie,
between,
right?
Bruce, that's what it was. Bruce Christie. So Bruce Christie used to work for Qvale.
Yeah.
So Qvale would have recognized. Qvale imported all the Volkswagens on the West Coast. So if he saw a Volkswagen with Portland, with the Oregon plates, he would have recognized it immediately as being one that was probably sold through his dealership. So he might have had an immediate connection to that car. Maybe that's why he wrote on it. I can only speculate. But
I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I'm not fully endorsing the suspect, but that one was extremely difficult to discount, because I'm just like, I mean, it's almost irrefutable. I mean, unless it's just a crazy synchronicity, coincidence, which I really don't see happening,
The problem is that there's so many with Qvale, you wear out the word.
Sure. Absolutely. I hear you now. And I mean, again, we could come back to your list of circumstantial evidence that you posted on Facebook, but let's go to. So hopefully my volume's good, guys. Just do a couple comments here. Ray Grant, Crow says the RO suggested a blue Valiant. Crow clearly didn't know cars since he never mentions the make and model of his ex's sports car.
That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean he doesn't know anything. He just didn't mention it.
Yeah, I hear you. The Triumph.
Just because he didn't mention it doesn't mean he doesn't know it.
Agreed.
He didn't mention his girlfriend's name either, but he knows what her name is.
Yeah, true. Maybe he didn't know that either. The Triumphs were extremely common back in the 1960s. You saw them all the time, so there had to be a lot of dealers who sold them. I don't know what that's supposed to be, Ray. You got to read Mike's book if you haven't. Maybe Ray already has. Let's do Blue Rock Springs.
Well, this is a person who has his own suspect, his own theory.
Sure.
So naturally, I'm going to get a lot of heat from someone like Ray because he's defending his turf, and that's one of the problems I have is that everybody has a suspect. So no one wants to accept the fact that Qvale could be Zodiac because they all think that somebody else did it. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, that's not my thing. My only thing is like you have so much emphasis on Presidio Heights because he's seen there by Palisetti, and then you can get into all that stuff Palisetti said later on, which is totally inconsistent, and then of course what Cavalier tells you in person, which is maybe I was in England, like that was just a strange curveball. But I just feel that like Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, Lake Berryessa, it's so much more difficult putting, as we both said, putting any of these suspects at those first three.
Well, but the thing is, I could take a shot at it. I mean, Qvale used to drive the back roads of the area. That goes back to 1948 when there was an article, August 1st, 1948, when there was an article about him in the San Francisco Chronicle, the first article ever written about him. They have a picture of him driving the back roads in Millbrae, so you can extrapolate and imagine that if someone owns a British sports car, they can't open it up on Market Street and go 80 miles an hour and test its handling, so they go on the back roads. They go on the back roads of Solano County, Marin County, Napa County. They branch out. So
100%.
Plus Judge Rick, who died in 2006. He was a good friend of mine. Judge Eric Aldahl. He was a Solano County Superior Court judge. He told me that Qvale raced horses at Solano County Fair, and he also probably worked them out at Pleasanton because he didn't have a workout over at his home in Oakville. So if he had to go between the Solano County Fair and Pleasanton, the quickest way was to go Lake Herman Road.
Sure. Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, you had it in the book. I'm not going to come up here and plead Mike's case for him. I'm just going to say, buy the book, read the book, guys, and come to your own, conclusion based on what Mike, presents in here, which I do think is one of the better, circumstantial cases. I mean, we can get to,
Plus, all my facts are documented. I don't say anything. I don't say anything anybody else take my word for. I know that there were a lot of people who manipulate facts and distort facts and craft them so that they fit their suspect and make them look more guilty. I never had to do that because all the facts have fit. And I was also afraid of being sued for defamation of character for a lot of money. So I was sure to document every fact I had to make sure that there was actually factual facts, so to speak.
100%. Yeah, no, I agree. Well, here we go. The pushback is coming in, Mike. It was going to come in sooner or later. Let's just do it. Captain J, if the Robbins kids, and you covered this obviously several times in the chapters, if the Robbins kids met Kjell Qvale beforehand, surely they would have recognized him as the guy that killed the taxi driver. If you haven't read the book, I think Mike's research might change your opinion on this, Captain, but you can go ahead and respond to that should you care to, Mike.
Yeah, well, Lindsay Robbins in particular hadn't met Qvale until the 1970s. When he had changed his look. He had never seen him looking like he did in the 1960s, like the picture I showed him of Qvale with Silky Sullivan with the horn-rimmed glasses and the short hair. And no sideburns. Yeah, he only knew him with no glasses, longish hair, and sideburns. Yep. In fact, when I was going through this the other day, when I was rereading it, when we showed Lindsay the picture, he said, "Are you sure this is him?" And we said, "Yeah, we're sure that's him." He said, "You're absolutely positive it's him?" And he said, "Yeah, it's him." He didn't even believe it was him. So, and once he saw the picture, he got very afraid. Yeah, he was very afraid of Qvale because of his power assertive, a lot of power.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Now, who was it now? One of the officers was the SFPD. He was supposed to show it to Lindsay, but he wouldn't do it for you guys. So you were able to.
Well, he could have shown it. Kelly Carroll, he was just so antagonistic towards me. He asked me a long time ago, years before I spoke to Walter, why would Qvale have done this? I didn't have an answer for him. All I had was evidence that pointed to the fact that he was Zodiac, not why he was Zodiac.
Sure.
So I had sent him the picture with Silky Sullivan. He had it in his files. He could have. He socialized with Lindsay Robbins. They used to have drinks together occasionally. And you'd think he would have folded up the picture, stuck it in his pocket, and just showed it to him. So, what do you think of this? If he would have shown it to him before I did, he would have gotten the same reaction that we got. Yeah. But Kelly Carroll was so sure that I was wrong that he used the fake DNA to rule out Qvale in 2002. But that's another story.
Yeah. In my opinion, I would say Mike and whoever backed you up on that one, you had like another expert you consulted, and you guys were kind of able to debunk that. It's super blurry in my room, guys. So, but I want you guys to see the picture with Silky Sullivan. I know just go look it up. I don't know if you have this on your website, Mike, or anywhere else. So I'm not saying that this means anything, guys, but his face is a dead ringer for the composite sketch. I don't hang my hat on the composite sketch, but that's one of the closest matches I've seen. again,
don't say that too loudly because people say he looks nothing like it or something like that. Or he doesn't resemble
well, they're
the
probably looking at the old
whatever.
Sideburns pictures without the glasses. This picture is almost, again, I don't know that the comp is the perfect Bastion should be our milestone, but that is a damn good link up that Mike has in the book. You don't got to take it from us, guys. Just go get the book and read it. You can come back and hit us in the comments. So since I just gave you that,
According to Lindsay Robbins, the sketches are 100% spot on.
Okay, I'll take his word for it. He was there. But one quick. Let's do it. Let me push back on you because that's a big part of my show, Mike. You know, you see, I go both ways.
Yeah.
Blue Rock Springs. Majot gets shot in his face with a flashlight in his face, but he also says stocky, beefy. I think he said younger. Is that where one of the younger descriptions comes from? Along with like you say
the younger.
So feel free to respond. I'm just you know this information. I'm just putting it out there in front of my
audience. There are varying descriptions of Zodiac. You have to go with which one you think is the best, and the best eyewitness is the ones from Presidio Heights because they weren't being shot at. They didn't just have their face blown off. Yeah. They didn't just have a flashlight shown in their face. Yeah. I think that Majot said he only saw the guy when he was in profile, you know, when he was back by his car.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I like I say in my book, a person can't fit every single description of Zodiac. There has to be one that you single out as being the best, and the best eyewitnesses are from Presidio Heights because they got to see the suspect for a long time. Yep. They were in the protection of their house. They weren't afraid. They didn't think he had a gun. Even Lindsay didn't even think he had a gun because they didn't hear a shot.
Yep.
So, you know, I think that's the best description, even though you seem to be questioning the sketch a little bit. When we spoke to Lindsay, he said that when the first sketch almost matched the second sketch, that's when they knew they nailed it. And he was adamant that sketch was accurate. But, you know, and like I said, he said, he was there, we weren't.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the sketch a little bit. I'm just saying, like, because I was way off on my understanding of the sketch, Mike. Again, going on with things I've learned, you know, because I thought that when they did the second iteration, as you just said, I thought that Felk had him.
Yeah, right.
And they showed it to him after the fact. It turned out he never did. It was Morford that corrected me on that. So I was all over the place. Good.
No, Lindsay was adamant that.
Yeah.
The first sketch was done by committee, and the second sketch was done when Rebecca said to her father, or her father said to Rebecca, you know, you could do a better job, or she said, I can do a better job to him, one of the two. And then they called Morales, I think it was, the sketch artist back in to come and do a second sketch. And when she did the sketch by herself, and it almost matched the first one, that's when Lindsay knew that they had nailed the sketch because she was, you know, she got the longest look at him, I guess, the longest uninterrupted look.
Sure, 100%. I mean, as I previously stated, I think it was Jim's interview with Lindsay, right, and the Robbins. I think that's one of the best sleuthings in the case of all. Just like when you guys spoke to Falk again, and we're gonna come to Presidio Heights after Lake Berryessa, but I was one of those people thinking that Falk and Zelms both saw him. I didn't even learn that it was only Falk until I read you guys' interview. So I mean, it's right, very yeah. The narratives, guys, like you really need to go back to Mike and Jim's research. You know, you can check out this book, you can check other sources, but there is some pushback. We'll go through a couple comments real quick, Mike. If Qvale was a major car dealer in SF, then he would have TV commercials, and so the Robbins kids or kids' parents would soon recognize him and put two and two together. What do you think about that one?
I don't think he had TV commercials. I never heard of any, and I never seen any.
Sure.
I would have loved to have seen some because I wanted to hear how he spoke.
And it would have to line up the description as well, you know.
If anything, he may have been on the radio occasionally, but I don't think he was on TV.
Sure.
He was a very well. I mean, doing a commercial doesn't necessarily mean you're not aloof, but he was a very aloof individual. He very rarely socialized. I think with people. I think he kept to himself. He was aloof all his life. One person said so.
Yeah, I mean the Bohemian Grove thing, which I generally do consider, you know, I know what it's known, what the public image is, but I generally do consider that to be a cult. I've always been, you know, the cult theory has always been close to my theory, so I definitely have stuff on that for you later. We'll get a little more Grant in here. If Qvale was the Zodiac and his prints didn't match the Presidio Heights prints, that means the prints aren't Zodiac prints, right? I mean, those are partials anyways.
Vince Repetto told me that I think that they don't have any confidence in the prints. So yes, Ray, they're not Zodiac's prints, if that's what you want me to say. but not because they don't match. Not because they don't match Zodiac. Because I was told by someone from SFPD that they don't have a lot of confidence in those prints.
He's backing it up factually, Ray, whether you like it or not. So let's just, I mean, again, I did my whole Blue Rock Springs thing. I mean, I did like how, there is that thing about the kind of lack of details in the Blue Rock Springs description, or how he gives those weird directions that like really don't take you to Blue Rock Springs. But he did have the golf course reference, and as you said, Qvale was like a golfer, so he could have just known it. That's like his like personal landmark. Right. Again, it's not a crazy reach, but that did make sense to me the way you explained it.
Well, he tried to tell me that he never would have. I guess he never played. He said he only played his golf courses, which were San Francisco. I forget the name, but there's two golf courses, the exclusive golf courses in San Francisco. He said those are the only ones he ever played. In other words, he wouldn't lower himself to play on a public course. But
yeah,
you never know. I mean, I can't account for every moment of the guy's life, and I can't say he never played Blue Rock Springs. But even if he didn't play it, he would have driven past it because, like I said, the quickest way from Solano County Fairgrounds to Pleasanton was down Columbus Parkway onto Lake Herman Road. So he would have gone by and seen Blue Rock Springs Golf Course. And if golf courses were near and dear to his heart, that might have registered with him.
Sure. I mean, and again, maybe he didn't play there, but you're meeting up with golfers, whatever, met up with someone there and went to another location. I mean, again, I don't want to go too deep into it.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah. We don't know the behind the personal details. There was a good one because just give me a brief second. There's a good.
While you're looking for that, I'll address Ray's question again.
Sure.
In 2012. 10 years after they eliminated Qvale with DNA, SFPD was extremely interested in my work. Vince Repetto took it and he got it up to the level of the brass, all the brass at SFPD and the chief. If Qvale's fingerprints didn't match, they would have known that by then. So if they really cared, if the prints were exclusionary, they're not exclusionary. If they were exclusionary, he would have been excluded. They wouldn't have been giving the report to the chief to read in 2012.
Wow, that was crazy synchronicity there, Mike, because the question was literally, did SFPD ever think Qvale was a person of interest? You literally answered it before I found it. That was awesome.
Yeah, but let me elaborate on it a little bit. So what happened was they sent at some point in 2012, once they decided that they were going to investigate Qvale, they said they couldn't talk to me anymore. So they excluded me, and I didn't know anything that was going on until August or September of that year. I found out that Vince Repetto and another detective who was handling the case at the time went out to Qvale's home and spoke to him for an hour and asked him if he would cooperate with their investigation. He said yes. Then when they got back to the station house, they got a call from somebody. I don't know if it was one of his lawyers or the sons or whatever. They got a call from somebody who said he will not cooperate with you. So he refused to cooperate with the investigation. And once he refused to cooperate, SFPD just dropped the investigation. Now, that's not how an investigation is usually run. It would take me a long time to go into how an investigation is usually run, but that's not how an investigation into someone is run. If they don't cooperate, you do other things to try to flesh it out. What they did is they allowed Qvale to run his own investigation. Once he said, I won't cooperate, they said, okay, fine, thank you very much, we're done. And that was it.
Yeah.
So, yes, they did send people out to his house.
Yeah, you were right about on that in the book. Of course, none of us would get such a special treatment. This is a question you never ask a Zodiac researcher. Mike, you can wave this off. Who would be your second favorite? I don't know that you have one.
I don't have a second favorite suspect.
I'm moving on.
It wouldn't be Ross Sullivan, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean he's enormous. He's way.
Yeah, don't try telling people that on public message boards. They'll fight you to the death.
I mean, he's never even made it north of Santa Cruz. The story is that Tahoe 27, who I think you were referencing earlier, got contact with his brother, who told her something that totally discounted him for Zodiac. In my opinion,
right?
It's probably either a physical or mental.
Well, there's a person right now on Tom's message board that I've been having a back and forth with about Ross Sullivan. He says that Ross was not as big, was small for his size. He wasn't that big for someone who was that big or something like that.
No, he was 250. He died north of 300 with Pickwickian syndrome. That's
right, exactly. He had Pickwickian syndrome. Thank you. He had Pickwickian syndrome when he died, so he was, he was up there and probably constantly ascending the elevator.
Yeah, I picked him as my lead in Riverside, as you were saying, as a Riverside local crime, and nothing further.
No,
Some people
no, I
seemingly
think he's a good
switched through that.
candidate for Riverside because he was sort of a library type. He might
Yep,
have seen her in the library. He was probably
he
too
worked
shy
there.
to.
He worked in
He
the
worked
library.
there. He was too
Absolutely.
shy to approach her, so he disabled her
Yep.
car. He told her that he loved her, and she said, "Go shove off." And so he had to kill her to save face. That I can see.
Sure, I agree. That that's generally my scenario. You kind of just articulated it better than I did in my own episode. Let's do so. The pinnacle of the Zodiac case for me, you have it on the cover of the book, is Lake Berryessa, because short of the Tate LaBianca crimes, this is like the most insane thing. Like I didn't really. I think it was the movie that introduced this to me. I never really resonated how ludicrous this was that he wore this executioner mask that we all know, like the Zodiac costume, and how that's a possible Lord High Executioner reference to the Mikado. But I'm going to push back a couple of the book points, Mike. I hope you don't mind, but he's clearly heavy at Lake Berryessa. So heavier than what I picture Kjell being. He's got the barrel chest, which I know you and Holly have provided the layers of clothing explanation for, which I know he was wearing, but this is probably my biggest, toughest thing with this suspect. Like you said, the description's changed. You're 100% right on that. But a lot of them it was always, beefy, heavy, the barrel chest. And then, of course, he's seen by Cecilia. Of course, Brian sees him in the suit. And then you have said yourself, the handwriting on the car door matches Zodiac's handwriting. So whoever the Berryessa killer is has to be the letter writer. So just take Berryessa whatever direction you want to go in it.
Well, let's go back to William Crowe. What did William Crowe said he saw in the initial report? He saw two people in the car, so there could be two people involved in Zodiac. This is something I've always been afraid of. Going back to July of 1999, I think I was riding with my father in the car, I remember, and I thought to myself, maybe these references to Gilbert and Sullivan means two people. Gilbert wrote the lyrics and Sullivan wrote the music, and maybe one of them committed the crimes and one of them wrote the letters. So if you concentrate on the letters, everyone wants to concentrate on DNA. Well, that's from the letters. So if you concentrate on the letter writer, you may miss the actual killer. And the killer would have been the person seen at different places. And now maybe Lake Berryessa, it was the other person killing maybe he was a heavyset guy. He killed the people and he wrote on the car and he wrote the letters. That's one possibility. The other possibility is, they talk about heavy. I guess with the compression footprint or whatever. That's something that's hard to.
I'm coming to that. I didn't love your point in the book, Mike. I'm not gonna lie to you. You're 1,000 times better than me in the case. Just let me push back on this one thing though. So standing up on one leg and compacting the footprints to make yourself appear heavier than you are. That's great for one or two footprints, but all the way in and all the way out, Mike.
No. It wasn't all the way in, all the way out. No.
Okay.
It was just one little specific point of part of sand, like maybe one or two steps. Okay. It wasn't all the way in. All the way in and all the way out is. Have you ever been there? It's hard pan.
I'm going to be going there soon.
It's hard pan. It's all hard ground there.
Yeah,
and maybe there was one little spot where it was soft. And if it was in Zodiac's mind to make himself look heavier that day, and then maybe when he stepped on some soft ground, he emphasize that footprint. It may be a long shot, but
that's better. That's better. That's better. The way I read it was and you explained the hard sand, so that's my bad. I got jumbled. Again, I was reading some of this stuff late night Mike kept asking me when the interview was. I was trying to finish his 400 plus page book so I would be informed and not have, imbecile questions for him. So in my mind, I was thinking all the way in and all the way out. And then what happens if someone sees a guy in an executioner mask standing on one foot trying to, create footprints?
Well, not doing it that. I mean, you just put a little extra emphasis on that one step.
Sure.
That's all. No. I mean, not anything crazy. But at any rate, I mean, there could have been two people involved. I don't know. All I know is that the handwriting on the car matches Zodiac. So whoever did Lake Berryessa was the Zodiac. Was involved in the Zodiac crimes. Whether there was another person involved or not, I don't know.
Yeah. No.
But here's the thing.
Go ahead.
No. Another thing is that Hartnell, if you read the notes of the producer from the Crimes of the Century, Hartnell actually changed his story and said that he may have overestimated the guy's weight because he's wearing a loose parka and he doesn't know what he had on underneath that. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of in line with what I was saying about wearing extra clothes and making himself look heavier.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not saying it's just a possibility, but like, you know, and we have a lot on Lake Berryessa. Like I said, it's like my kind of personal focus of the case. So we're gonna bounce these things around people. But, you know, as far as like Kjell being this, like, you know, like former sprinter athlete and then an avid skier, a golfer, you know, he's one of the more athletically capable Zodiac suspects, if you will.
Which is important when you get to Presidio Heights and his original destination for the cab. But go ahead.
Yeah, and we're going to cover that on Presidio Heights. But for me, it's like, okay, so I want to get your real quick. I want to get your run of the Dr. Rayfield and his son when they see the kind of like they describe him as like out of place, out of shape dude, which I think is like a heavier guy. If you think that's either Zodiac or like we're saying the Lake Berryessa killer and the letter writer, well, that dude wasn't doing very good climbing the hill. I think like Kjell probably would have had an easier time. You know, it's the same. For instance, what they say about Arthur Lee Allen having gout in his feet and stuff, like he would have struggled with Lake Berryessa, you know, as you're saying, with the hard sand and, you know, so just do you get anything out of that Rayfield report?
I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, you know, let me put it this way. Kjell was fit his whole life, I think.
Yeah.
At least in the 1970s. And, you know, I remember when I was 50, I was a pretty good runner when I was younger. I wasn't Kjell Qvale. I couldn't run like him, but I could run pretty well.
Sure.
And I could still run pretty well when I was 50. So, you know, I think that he could have easily, you know, I don't see him having trouble climbing up a hill, huffing and puffing. He didn't smoke. He was 5'9", 160, I think, or something like that. So, you know, I can't account for every single fact. You know, Ken Narla said something to me a long time ago that I've never forgotten. He said, because I was good friends with Ken. In fact, the first time I went to Lake Berryessa, Ken was with me, and Ed Neal was my partner then. He directed us to the wrong spot, and I remember Ken standing on the shoreline trying to jam his feet into the ground to make footprints, and he couldn't. That's how hard the ground is there.
Yeah.
But Ken told me that even when you find the right guy, you're not going to be able to explain every single thing. You know, there's going to be some things that won't fit. And maybe that's one of Berryessa might be the thing that doesn't fit. I mean, sure. I don't know how he did it.
You raised it on Facebook. You saw my comment and you rebutted me on there. So we're, you know, at the same point. It's just like, again, you know, the impressiveness of the cast of characters. Of course, you have Dean, you have Judge Udall. Of course, you have Ken. You have Cyril Wetch. You know, looked at your work at the end. I consider that guy
Walter,
Cyril Weck. I consider him the gold standard. He's an expert in JFK. He's, you know, I totally agree with him on the Kurt Cobain, you know, thing. So like, I was blown away when I saw that he looked at the stuff. So I mean,
you know what the thing about Weck, the thing about Weck is he made his name on the JFK with the single bullet theory. But actually, he was wrong. I hate to say it. But, I mean, I like Cyril Wecht. I think he's a good guy, and I think he's very sharp. But he was wrong because he didn't take into account the fact that Connolly was sitting inboard from JFK, that the seats weren't aligned perfectly. So the bullet didn't have to make a turn. It just could have gone in a straight line right through both of them. But anyway, that's my thing on that's my take on.
Maybe you would have to do an entire differently thing on that because I've seen Cyril's stuff recently. That point stands. You know, I'm a little bit different on JFK. We'll keep it on Zodiac. You wrote the book. You know,
JFK is a little too complicated for me.
100%. We'd be stuck on that rabbit hole for the next. You know, I'd have to do a whole new series. So
right, we'd be here for another couple of hours.
I'm trying to get people to buy your book here. So Wing Walkers. I got to push back, Mike. It looked like to me that you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're only available to Navy and Air Force personnel. But
no, I didn't say that. No, okay, I hope I didn't say that. I would have said that.
That's how I read it. So well,
because Qvale was in the Navy, he would have been familiar with wing walkers because they were used at his time. I have his yearbook from when he was in the military, in 1941, whatever it was, and they talk about someone being a wing walker. So you know, they would have worn wing walker shoes, I presume. And so you know, so wing walkers would have been something that would have been familiar to him as someone in the Navy. Not that they were only, not that someone had to be in the Navy to wear them, but that they would have been familiar to him.
Yeah, 100%. No, I mean, you lined it up right. Like, I agree. I like the Navy experience. I like the pilot experience. I like the flying, the aerial views, the stuff you did over Mount Diablo. All of that was awesome. But just the way I read it, and maybe I misconstrued it, everybody else can feel free to pop over to Amazon. And you can always hit me in the comments, guys, and check me if you feel I didn't get it right. You know, I do the show with all you guys. It's just because it's a known fact that, you know, prison guard, it was like they were like federally distributed, right? So there was prison guards, there was other like a lot of people just say, well, Zodiac's military because of wing walkers. Well, like, yeah, he could buy them secondhand. They were distributed to federal employees, so it's a little more. Anyway, you know how they looked at there was what 100,000, I believe, or more. So it's not that easy
like
to
that.
just narrow down the wing walkers. Although I find the wing walkers supremely interesting. I like all the Navy guys. I'm all for the nautical themes of, you know, the water sacrifice. They pushed it hard in the movie, and I do want to ask you about how you consulted on the movie as well, because I'm a big fan of the movie, and we can maybe do that after the canonicals.
I could tell you that in one line because I didn't do very much for the movie.
Sure. Sure.
I want me to tell you. Well, I did. And I don't know. I feel like I was set up a little bit. I don't know that was really. I don't know if they really needed my help because they asked me to give them Falk's phone number so they could call him. But Harry Phillips had spoken to him before me, and I think he consulted on the film. So
Sure.
they could have probably gotten the number from him. I don't know if I don't know what they used for me, but you know what they needed me for.
They credited you, didn't they?
No, they credited me, but I gave them Falk's phone number. That's all I did. I didn't do anything else.
Hey. Hard work. Sometimes it's just a simple task. No, that's awesome. I mean, it's probably because of you and Jim's, you know, your stuff with Falk. I assume, you know, somebody would have had to show that to Fincher.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, somebody noticed that we spoke to him, and they wanted to know how to get in touch with him because he wasn't easy to find, I guess. So
that's showbiz.
Which I don't know. If you have high fancy software, you can find Falk. You could have found Falk, but anyway, they did ask me to help them, and I helped them.
No, hey, it was a job well done. Since we're on the subject and we'll combine them both, what do you think of, like, I think the Lake Berryessa scene is the pinnacle of the film because of Brian said how accurate it was. Just like your thoughts on either the Berryessa scene or the film itself. I mean, I know.
The only thing about Berryessa is they have the wrong spot. I mean, if you look at William White after the in the day after the shooting, I think, or the stabbing. He was. I mean, if you look at the aerial picture of Lake Berryessa, they show a white, I don't know what it was, a white box or something, maybe over a footprint. They were out between the trees, and for some reason they pushed them down south of the trees. Mm-hmm. So, but other than that, I thought the recreation was good. They brought all the trees in and everything. All the trees are gone. When I first went out there, the one tree was still there, the one that was leaning to the south. Yeah, hadn't been uprooted yet. So that's how old I am. No, I was there when the tree was still there.
No, that's epic. I trust me. I really want to get up there to do my episode on that.
The peninsula doesn't look anything like it used to. It doesn't even have any vegetation on it, I don't think. So when I went out there last time, it was very sad because it wasn't even any grass. I don't know.
Coming to, I didn't know that they had the wrong spot, but apparently Fincher flew out trees so they could get the whole, Zodiac walking behind the tree and putting on his mask and coming out the other side.
The other thing is that Graysmith has the wrong thing in his book. He has Zodiac using the contour of the island to come up behind them by the two little trees, coming up by the two little trees at the end of the point. But he didn't come out there. He came up the spine of the island, and he went behind the big tree at the to the south of where they were. So Graysmith has that wrong in his book, among other things.
Add it to the list, as I was just gonna say. Another thing that I know people don't love Myth of the Zodiac and Horn's work, but one thing I will say they did get right in the last documentary was the 3 college girls that are have the Lake Berryessa lurker, and obviously you've seen the sketch. That story has evolved. I just want to get your take of it since we're on Lake Berryessa. So, at first it was, this nice looking man with his hair combed, smoking cigarettes, watching the girls sunbathing. Then when she does the new documentary, she says that he was hiding behind the trees, trying to line it up with Brian and Cecilia, and that she got a dark vibe from him. I'm just wondering, what do you make of the lurker story?
I didn't watch that documentary, but again, you have to take the story I think that they told initially as being closer to the truth. This is another story that seems to have evolved over time, like Crows, and you have to make a decision as to which one is more accurate. It's pretty different sitting in a car smoking cigarettes. That's what's in Graysmith's book too. I think the ice blue car or something like that. having someone sitting in a car smoking cigarettes is a lot different from someone lurking around trees and staring at, Brian and Cecilia, assuming that they were there when the girls were. I thought that was earlier in the day. But just in general, I think I would accept what she said earlier as opposed to what she said later.
Agreed. I mean, I know that locations are supposed to be in close proximity. I don't know exactly how, but it's my understanding that the cigarettes were left there. And I'm just like, if Zodiac's so careful with licking the stamps, we'll get into the DNA thing later. Why park in your car and smoke a pack of butts and leave it all there if you're planning to go commit like a Zodiac crime?
There was no such thing as DNA in those days, so I don't think they were worried unless they would have known what brand of cigarette he smoked. That's about the only thing they would have gotten out of it.
It just seems like, well, true, but it just seems like he was a lot more careful with wearing the gloves when he handled the rope and just certain detail. And you could say it's 69, so whatever, it goes both ways, like you said. But it just seems he took care to do other things. So I don't know if it gels with the narrative. If Mike doesn't have anything else on Lake Berryessa, we can go to a subject that Rodelli is undoubtedly an expert in: the Presidio Heights Paul Stine murder in October of 69. I don't know where Cat Daddy Steve got this. Did Mike say the Zodiac symbol is a radar, scope, compass rose? Did you have that in there? That might have.
No, I've never said anything like that.
Okay.
I believe that the Zodiac symbol is one of the Norse references. It's called Odin's cross.
Yep.
And that's on the building. And it's on the building that Qvale bought in Modena, Italy, too. The cross circle.
I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what to make of that because you questioned him on it, and he gave you a snarky snicker, and he told you that it was already on there when he bought the building, but you found the proof it wasn't. So
I had the proof that day, and I wasn't smart enough to bring. I didn't know I had it, and I wish I had. I think I might have even had it in a folder. I could have just, like Perry Mason, I could have brought it out and said, "Here."
I don't. Yeah. Again, that interaction.
Definitely lying about that. I mean, he's the one who said he wanted to change
I think the book is worth it, guys, just to see Mike's interaction with the. I know it's near the end with the suspect, because you're gonna want to see what they said to each other, guys. It's highly entertaining, even if you don't.
Worth it for more than that. I built a very strong case against this guy too.
Oh well, yeah, no, of course you want to read the book for Mike's research, but that is kind of like your, you took it to his face. I mean, like we said, I don't know of anyone else that has done that, unless you want to count Robert Graysmith hiding behind the bookshelf in Arthur Lee Allen's bookstore, which they show the movie and they're this far away from each other's faces. I'm like, that would never happen. I'm sorry. If you thought that was the Zodiac, you would go in his job and go stare in his face. What's stopping him from just pulling out a gun and blowing your head off in public just to not be identified? He killed all these people.
If you think meeting him face to face was amazing, it showed some guts. The original way he wanted to meet me, originally he said he wanted to meet on the 22nd of September at the racetrack. He wanted to have lunch at Golden Gate Fields. And I'm thinking to myself, why would he want to meet me at Golden Gate Fields? Because everybody knows him there. I'm going to be sitting there asking if he's a Zodiac killer in front of all these people. Yeah. But I just was amenable to anything he wanted to do, and he was going to drive, so I was going to get in the car with him and actually drive all by myself with him to the racetrack, because I knew that people knew where I was. I mean, if something happened, if I disappeared, there wouldn't have been any question about who did it. So I didn't think I had anything to worry about.
Yeah. Understood. Yeah, I think you did have that in there. And then, of course, the fact that he told you there was a scheduling issue, which put it on, was it September 27th?
Yeah, he was going to be away for the weekend, and it turns out he was at the track the next day, involved in a discussion about owning horses, a panel discussion. He was part of the panel. Yeah. And then he tried to tell me that his friend, I remember, told me when I walked in on the 27th that take it easy on Kjell because his mind is beginning to wander. Well, if your mind's beginning to wander, why would you get up on the stage with people and have to answer questions, point blank questions that you don't know what they are, about owning horses? So the whole thing, I think, was, my friend Jim felt it more than I did. He felt we were set up when we had that meeting. It was set up to make us look stupid. Something.
For sure. They wouldn't let Jim ask any questions, and I know Jim would.
Oh no,
ripped him on the facts.
No,
so
Jim tried to ask a question. His second got up and he said, "This is a discussion between Mr. Q and Mike. Yeah, why don't you can't ask any questions." So Jim had to sit there and be quiet.
shut him down. And I felt like you called him out on the Lake Berryessa anniversary. I feel like you made a snarky remark about that as well. But
yeah, I did, because I didn't realize when he changed the date on the 22nd. I just thought, okay, 5 days from now, that's fine. I didn't even think of the date. And then a couple of days later, I thought, oh wow, that's the 27th. That's the same date as his father was born, and the date of the Lake Berryessa attack.
Yeah, that's another one of the links, and Mike has that list posted on his Facebook of all the circumstantial dates. And again, like I said, I'm a Berryessa guy, so that fit into my wheelhouse. Let's do Presidio Heights, because I mean, obviously, you guys, did the definitive deep dive on Presidio
above
Heights.
And beyond. Yeah.
You and Jim, the interview with Lindsay Robbins, the interview with Falcon. I covered that at the beginning of when we were talking. You can, again, I think I consider this like kind of, the apex of your stuff. We're going to have a lot to get into. I mean, this notion that, Zodiac sat in the front seat, it comes up a lot, but is this unconfirmed, Mike? I don't know if I've ever seen anything that this is known.
I don't know that was ever confirmed. I mean, people said that he sat in the front seat. The only way to really tell, and I don't think they have the cabin evidence anymore, and I don't know if they could do it after all these years, but if you're sitting in the front seat and you shoot him, there should be a spray of blood that comes back, and there should be a shadow where you were that would be reflected on the door. It would go around you. So I don't know if, I don't know if they were doing those types of analyses in those days. Probably not. So, the conventional wisdom, most taxi passengers sit in the back. They tried to say that the Geik has to be the Zodiac because he knew Stine, and Stine would only let people he knew sit in the front seat. And since Zodiac sat in the front seat, it must be Geik. And I tried to, then I countered that by saying that, Qvale was so wealthy and so well dressed, and or not well dressed, but well spoken, and put the guy at ease. And he was going to Presidio Heights, which is one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in San Francisco. That he might have let Qvale sit in the front seat for all we know. So. But I don't know. I don't have any real strong opinions on whether he sat in the front or back seat. My belief is that he sat in the back seat, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm in the same line as you. I thought you made a comment in there. I thought maybe we were leaning to the front seat theory. And again, I'm just postulating upon it.
No, I was just trying to counter what they were saying about Geik. They said it had to be Geik. One of the nails in the coffin. It had to be Geik because only Geik would have been allowed to sit in the front seat because he knew Stine.
Don't get me wrong, I hate those Zodiac newest victims theories. I've never seen anything substantial on that. I've gone so deep down that Darlene Ferrin, satanic coven, cult rabbit theory, and just they do that with, as you said, they do it with Geik and Stine there, but then they try to go off the deep end and do it with, he knew all of them. I'm like, well, then it would have been way easier to find him if you could just find the one person that knew them all. It would have lined up, I think way faster, So
right.
Let's, I mentioned, Jim and Mike's interview with Falcon Zelms. If you guys don't know this, I was one of the people talking about how thick and crazy the fog was in the Presidio, so you couldn't see the blood on his clothes. And again, I was totally wrong on this. Shout out to Druzer for sending me Mike and Jim's interview with Falk. Also, the whole thing, people retell this story in the Zodiac letter of how, they stopped me and I told them that it was another guy down the street waving his gun. So, I thought that was a real thing. I didn't know Falk just drove by and the lights brushed over him and then they got the APB or whatever and just drove off.
Some people will swear that that's a lie and that Falcon Zelms did stop and speak to him, and then let him go.
I don't believe it. I believe what he told you guys. I believe what he told Jim.
Listen, I think it was Ed Neal or somebody used to say that there was 3.7 seconds missing and they get count. So that was the time that it's ridiculous. They try to nail it down the numbers of seconds and it just gets to be too crazy.
Yeah, no, it did get obnoxious at points there, but again, no fog at the Presidio people. They asked Zelms. Zelms didn't even see him. That was kind of astounding to me. Do we have the timeline correct? And again, I would just say just get Mike's book because this is the best description of it. But the way you have it playing out, do we have Qvale, the lights brushing over him? That being Qvale, does that track with when Palisetti comes down and see what is he walking his dog or he's just standing there awkwardly?
Because Palisetti hadn't left Cherry Street yet.
Yeah.
Palisetti was working his way up Cherry Street. Palisetti tries to have it both ways. He tries to say, "I worked my way up Cherry Street very carefully, so I didn't get shot," and like Stine did. But then he makes it sound like he just raced from Cherry all the way down to Jackson and got there so quickly that Qvale couldn't be the Zodiac. So. you didn't have time to get home after seeing Falk and get changed and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But we can't have it both ways. Either he took his time or he didn't.
100%. He can't have it both ways. You got him on the inconsistency in the book. I'm trying to figure the whole thing out because I don't know if it gels with me that he sprints away from there, and then because he changes into the smoking jacket or whatever, Palisetti described it as whatever, a robe or a smoking jacket, and I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, you know better than me. You've been there. You and Jim did the research, but for him to sprint back and change and then get his dog, I'm just wondering, Mike, like, why even come outside with the dog? If he just did that on Washington and Cherry, why can't he just run back and hide in his house?
I've been having such a big argument with someone on the message board about this. So let's take it a step at a time. First of all,
sure.
Rebecca Robbins said, and this is surprising. I mean, you wouldn't have thought this, but this is what she said. She said that the guy never looked up at her. You would think that she would have been sticking out like a sore thumb. She's sitting in a lighted window. She's watching. You'd think he'd have his head on the swivel, worrying about someone watching him. Apparently, he didn't.
Yeah.
And so she said that he never looked at her. So then when he leaves the crime scene, he doesn't run up Cherry to get to the park. He walks up Cherry. He gets to the position where he could have gotten in the park and gotten into the dark, to get away from everybody. He doesn't. He crosses over Jackson and he walks slowly down Jackson, and then he's surprised from the front by a police car. And you would think that if he was on his guard, knowing that someone had watched him, he would have walked a lot faster. He maybe would have gone into the park at the end of Cherry, and he would have been alert for a car coming. That might have been a police car, and when he saw it was a police car, I think he would have ducked. He didn't do any of those things. So as far as I'm concerned, he didn't know that he was seen by anybody at the crime scene. And then when Falcons Elms, so he sees Falcons Elms slowing down to take a look at him. He gets in the scenario that we're accepting, not that they spoke to him, but that he saw them and he casually walked up the steps to 3712 as if he lived there or knew somebody there or something. And then he sees Falcons Elms drive away. And what is he going to think? Well, they're not looking for me because they saw me. And they didn't stop me. They didn't say stop police. They didn't. Right. They didn't stop the car and get out and talk to him. They just kept going. So they're not looking for someone to look like me. Nobody saw me at the crime scene, and the police looked at me and let me go. So they're not looking for anybody like me. People have a difficult time accepting this and understanding it for some reason. But in Qvale's mind, he would have thought they're not looking for someone like me. So he would have gotten home. He might have ducked into the park. There was a gate. There was a gate. In the property, in the wall, for anyone that's been there, there's a wall behind the.
I've been to this location, so you can't get me on that one.
Yeah, there was a gate. There was a gate there. In fact, it's in my book, the gate. He might have gone through the gate into the next door's property, jumped over a fence or whatever, and then gotten back home, and then changed and gotten back out on the street. So there's no reason why he wouldn't have gotten back on the street. He wasn't afraid of anybody looking for him because the police looked right at him and they didn't stop him.
Yeah, well, and 100%, like, as you said, if he comes back outside and is walking his dog or standing there awkwardly with his dog sitting there as an alibi, well, what are you doing here? Well, this is my yard. I'm walking my dog, So he's kind of the one person that, that has
not only that, but not only that, but do you know who I am? I know the mayor. I'll have your job if you don't leave me alone.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, again, it's Presidio Heights, so I mean, yeah, without a doubt.
Right. Plus, Falk was inherently talking to Falk. I learned something I didn't know, that he was inherently like reticent to talk to the people in Presidio Heights. He didn't bother them unless he really needed to. And then when he saw Qvale walking down the street, he looked like he belonged there. He wasn't dressed in a suit. But he was dressed, nicely enough that the Falk just thought he was somebody who lived there. And then Falk was inherently opposed to talking to people who lived there. Plus, he was looking for a black guy at the time. The other thing is Qvale doesn't know they're looking for a black guy.
Right.
He doesn't know the description has changed. All of a sudden, they're looking for somebody who's white, who sort of looks like him. If he would have known all this, he might not have gone back out. But he didn't know any of this. So he goes back out on the street and he meets Palisetti. What does Palisetti do? He lets him go.
Yeah, 100%. Is it for the second time now? Well, I mean, if you count the first car driving by.
The first car looked at him and didn't stop him, so they let him go, and then Palisetti let him go.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of jumped right in because of your book's angle, but me personally, like, just real quick, my episode 2 on Ray Davis, when Ray Davis is dumped between the governor's house and the mayor's house and the former mayor's house down in Oceanside, the assailant then takes the taxi and drives it north. So when the original stop is Washington and Maple, I've always I've always wondered if that's, we know Zodiac, you've got the Mount Diablo and the magnetic north, and he's big on maps and, whatever you want to call that. So I've always wondered if that's not a callback to Davis, the fact that in both situations, the vehicle, moves north. And again, I'm not on a Rodelli level. It's just simple hypothesizing on my end. We have a question here. Have you considered that KQ was walking his dog near Maple, which caused Zodiac to make the cab go to Cherry? I don't.
That's a good question. I've often thought that Qvale could have actually tried to make his own alibi for that night, because he could have said, it's funny, I was out walking my dog and I was up at Washington and Maple, and the cab pulled to the curb and then everybody out, and it kept going. But he never said that. But I always wondered about that. But no, he didn't. I mean, if Qvale is Zodiac, he didn't say anything about that. So he never made that alibi. But I often thought he could have tried to create his own alibi by saying that.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I agree with that. I agree with that too. There's another question for Mike here, and Mike would know the answer of this. I would not. Did Hartnell or Nancy Slover ever get a chance to hear Kjell's voice?
Uh-oh, you're breaking up.
What? Can you see the question on the screen one more time? Did Hartnell or Nancy Slover ever get a chance to hear Kjell's voice?
Not that I know of. No, because he became a suspect in 1999 when they never bothered to. I didn't have anybody taking me seriously enough in 1999. The police would have had to have done that, and
agreed.
But they never did that.
Yeah, no problem.
I tried to. Wait. Let me get back to Hartnell. So I had a tape of Qvale's voice from an interview he did about Jensen Motors in 1971 or something, from the BBC sent it to me. And I tried to send it to Hartnell to listen to the voice, and because Qvale does have a distinctive way of saying certain words. Brian Hartnell said he had a drawl, and in that interview he says, "I wish we hadn't tried to build such a cheap car." He says "car" and draws it out, and then he says another couple of words in a very distinctive way, and I just wanted to know if it resonated with Hartnell, because Hartnell said he had a distinctive way of talking. Qvale was described as having a slow manner of speaking in a 1958 article. The guy's talking about his dealership. All of a sudden, he has to stop and say, Qvale has a very distinctive way of speaking, which is, almost slow. I forgot the exact word he used, but he said almost slow.
Called it a drawl. Yeah.
He didn't say a drawl, but he said it was almost slow, his way of speaking. And of course, Zodiac was described as having a slow, casual way of speaking by Hartnell. But Hartnell never responded, so I never got him to listen to the tape, of Qvale speaking.
Understood. This is something my friend Richard Grinnell and I postulated about. We'll come to him later. Oh, oops, that's Tully. Sorry, Tully, excuse me.
If I said the sky is blue, Richard Grinnell would say it's green. But go ahead.
I wish you were here tonight, Rich. I agree with this, though. There's one thing I'm in agreement on. So this is my friend Cat's Daddy Steve. Holly, I think Paul slammed on the brakes one block earlier, slammed Z into the back seat. He shot him, drifting the car one more block. Paul's lungs, chest were bruised. Z had, I don't know about the Z limp thing, whatever. But I do agree with those chest wounds on Stine. Mike, it appears something happened there. Do you have anything on that?
There were chest wounds on Stine. I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah,
listen, offer some. I mean,
it's in the report apparently.
Again,
it seems like he bumped into the steering wheel. And again, I'm not the forensic guy, so I don't know. But that's just a thing that's out there. We'll leave it at that, right? Anyway.
Yeah, I really can't. It's hard for me to comment on that because I have my own ideas about what happened in Washington and Maple.
Sure.
So,
I'm just running stuff by you. It's whatever. Unless you have anything else on Paul Stine, Presidio Heights, Mike, we can move on.
Let's see, Stine and Presidio Heights.
I mean, it's all in the book.
No, except to say that the interviewing Lindsay and Falk were like just the most exhilarating. I mean, it's hard to describe how, especially Lindsay, because we didn't expect Lindsay. The way Lindsay happened is that Jim and I had gone to canvass the neighborhood where Qvale lived, because we don't know that anybody actually ever canvassed it. And, try to find people that lived there at the time, to try to find someone who spoke to Qvale on the night of the Stine murder. Maybe I think that they would remember like the JFK assassination, they would remember what they did that night, and they might remember speaking to Kjell, because Kjell tried to say he was out of the country. So Jim and I got there, and we went to the corner of Washington and Cherry first, so I could talk to Jim about exactly what happened and where the vantage point was and all this stuff. And we saw a lady in the alcove. For people who've been there before, there's a little alcove next to the door, or in front of the door, and so we went over there and we introduced ourselves. And I asked her if she was Rebecca Robbins. She said, "No, I'm her mother." So I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know which one of the children was the one to talk to. I picked out Trevor. I said, we'd like to speak to Trevor. And she said, well, I don't think he would talk to you, but Lindsay might. But I don't want to give you his phone number. So if you give me your phone number, I'll have him call you if he wants to talk to you. So Jim gives her a card, and I wrote my name on the back, and just so he knew that I was working with. He knew that Jim was working with an amateur, that I wasn't a professional. And we gave her the card, and then we drove to Qvale's neighborhood. And when we got down to Qvale's neighborhood, there was construction going on all over the place there. I even went down Spruce Street, thinking I could park on Spruce Street down the block, and there was nowhere to park. So when I came back up, the only spot that was available was right in front of Qvale's house. And I was like, Jim, I don't want to park here, because I'm afraid, because that was right after, that was like less than a year after the ABC show when, I was on. I thought he might recognize me. I didn't want him to think I was coming to harass him or anything, which I wasn't. Yeah. But Jim said, just park the damn car. So I parked the car in front of his house, and we get out, and I'm sort of shielding my face. And we walked down the end of the street, and we worked our way up. And we ended up, this guy from the first house on the end came up and started talking to us. He was like the neighborhood gossip. He knew everything about all the houses and all the people that lived there. And all of a sudden, Kjell pulled up, and while I'm talking to this guy, all of a sudden Jim's phone rings. I think it's his wife. So Jim walks away, and he walks right in front of next to the tree in front of Qvale's house. And he's talking a long time. And this other guy is like, he's like bending my ear. So I finally got away from him. And I went over by Jim, and I realized he was talking to Lindsay Robbins. So we're talking to Lindsay Robbins right in front of Qvale's house, next to the tree in front of his house. It was just so eerie, but it was just exhilarating, because Lindsay started out saying that there was no way there was Qvale. And then when we showed him the picture, all of a sudden it was like he had a complete transformation, and he was like petrified of Qvale. But so it was one of the most exhilarating things that ever happened to me in my life, was talking to Lindsay Robbins, because of all the things we learned that we never expected. Like there was a good lighting around the cab, and there was no fog that night, and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. No, I that was what I thought was one of the high points of the book, which is what I said. And I know where you're going with this, Cat Daddy Steve. Officer Falk said he had a lumbering limp type of gait. Did he mention that to you and Jim? Do you recall, Mike? Because this could be faked as well. Let's keep it real.
Yeah, well, he didn't. Falk, all I can tell you is that I showed Falk two pictures of Qvale. The one that you showed before with Silky Sullivan, and another one with him in front of his house next to a Jensen car. And he didn't realize he was looking at the same person in both pictures. And he said the guy in the picture with the horse has the right hairline, and the guy in the picture with the car has the right chin. So he said that basically said that Qvale had the right hairline and the right chin. He didn't say anything about a limp. He didn't make I remember he didn't make a big deal. We talked to him, in 2005 or 6. So this is a long time ago. Well, I don't remember him making a big deal out of Zodiac had to have a limp or anything like that. Lumbering gait is what he described it as. Whatever that is.
He laughed off that it was Arthur Leigh Allen. He literally told you guys that it would be a ridiculous assumption that it could be Allen at Presidio Heights.
Well, Lindsay Robbins laughed at Allen. Falk got upset. For the only time we were speaking to him, he got really agitated when we talked about Allen. He said, "There's no way it was that guy. He was way out of proportion," meaning he was too big. Yeah.
Yes. Way
so
too big.
Both Falk and Lindsay had absolutely, no use for Allen as a suspect.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with them. As you said, they were there. I'm not going to question anything that happened. Holly had my back on the chest injury, Mike. The lung parenchymal injury. I'm far from a surgeon.
Parenchymal injury in the lung.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, we don't need to spend.
I mean, I don't know. Was there bruising of the sternum? Was there bruising like in the rib area and the sternum? Did they talk?
It was my understanding that there was some. I believe that's what Rich told me in the report. This is my friend Dion Falk, scratched verbatim, walked with a shuffling lope, slightly bent forward, head down. Yeah, so shuffling lope was apparently again.
Yeah, then later on, the lumbering gait came from somewhere. I forget where it came from.
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty much done on Presidio Heights. I thought Mike did amazing on that. Of course, you have the Mikado mentioned in the book, and then of course, Kjell writes to you on Monarch paper, and you tend to make a big deal about that in the book. I could see why, though. I could see why, Mike.
Well, people say, oh, in order to discredit them, they say, well, a lot of people in Presidio Heights write in monarch-sized paper, but that's not the question. The question is, how many Zodiac suspects wrote on monarch-sized paper? Has any other Zodiac suspect ever written a letter on monarch-sized paper? I don't know.
Not that I know of. Dion, you got anything on that? Usually I have my lifelines in the chat.
Dion's helped me out with some articles, so I want to say thanks to him.
Yeah. No, Dion's amazing. That's my boy. I don't know. Not that I know of. I'm a little bit, again, I'm probably newer to the case than either of you guys. But
yeah, I'm waiting for someone to show me a suspect who wrote on monarch-sized paper other than Qvale. Show me one. I've never seen one.
I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble with that, guys. This is, hey, if you have guys, Mike's here now. He's letting you, he's letting you raise points if you want to push back. Let's see.
Yeah, bring it on. Bring it on.
He's not afraid. He's not shying away. My question would be if Spine also suffered a TBI, which usually accompanies this lung injury. I don't know, Holly. You sound way more versed in that than I am. So
I don't even know if the doctors would have known what that was back then.
Yeah, I think there was just a lot going on. Like, one thing I love about these scenes is they say, well, why didn't the police do this and why didn't the police do that? Especially at Berryessa, where Land took the blanket away and stuff like that. But it's equally so at Presidio Heights, and I'm like, because it was pure chaos. So there's like a body. They're trying to secure the crime scene. It's like, I don't think it's ever as cut and dry as people say it is, Mike, and you talk to more of the law enforcement officials than I did. But it's like there's a lot going on, especially night of, and like Toschi and Armstrong, they get there like a bit later, right? So I mean, there's a lot going on, like
right. Toschi got there later than most people think.
Right. That's what I'm getting at.
He had to pick up Armstrong too. So
I assume that you've seen this, Mike, because of who you are. Did you see this thing? Was it Lindsay's son that said that his dad told him that he touched? Yeah. Can we just get your take on it? You could take it or leave it.
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly explain why the Prince have never matched anybody. That's for sure. When he had time to do that, I don't really, I don't know when he had time to do that.
Well, doesn't Palisetti say that he secured it? He claimed that the kids came outside, but he stopped them before they got to the...
Well, Lindsay said when he first went outside, he went to the corner of Cherry and Washington to watch the guy walk up the street, and then Palisetti arrived, and then they secured the cab. So unless... when Palisetti was away, Peta somehow let Lindsay, look in the cab or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can come up with. But
yeah. No, it's good. I mean, you kind of discussed the the Mikado music and lyrics theory, and I do like your metaphor on that. Is there anything else you found on the Mikado that pertains to Qvale, or just anything overall? Because of course there's the Exorcist letter, and we'll come to some of that stuff when we
the Exorcist. Yeah. The Mikado. When I spoke to Qvale face to face in 2006, he said that he wasn't into opera, and he didn't. His parents weren't into opera. They weren't those type of people and all that. But there is an article that I have from, I think, 1974, and it shows him with sideburns and no glasses, by the way. Mm-hmm. The way Lindsay would have remembered him, I think. Mm-hmm. He was hosting some kind of function, a fundraiser for the San Francisco Opera. Now, his wife may have been the one who was interested in the opera, but she might have dragged him along to operas. I mean, I can't say that he ever saw the Mikado, and I can't say they never saw the Mikado, and I can't say that because he wasn't truthful with me. I can't say that because his stepmother, when his mother died in 1939, his father remarried a couple of years later, and he married an English woman. So she might have been somehow interested in the Mikado, and she may have passed that along to him, because I remember Mike Kelleher saying that you get your cultural influences from your mother usually. And, so it's possible that he could have learned of the Mikado from her. But, this is reaching back, 80 years now and trying to reach into someone's family and figure out if she listed the Mikado. I mean, it's difficult to do.
Sure. Yeah, understood. I mean, of course, there's the film versions of it as well, right? Groucho Marx, or so we know. Well, Zodiac appears to be watching movies based on his letters, and that brings me to my next point.
Well, it's interesting because Holly sent me an article the other day about how Qvale had a screen test for a movie once. I didn't realize that, and his brother played in a movie about Nazis or something like that. So, and Qvale actually produced a movie in the 70s. So
that was my next
he
question.
He had some ties to the
yeah.
the movie industry.
That I was literally about to just bring up. So, the fact that he produced that movie, I do movie reviews on the channel, Mike, and kind of my, probably one of my top things is, Zodiac's movies reference and just the whole, pop culture angle, it's just the excessive movie references. And then, we could just expound on this a little bit. So he produced Assault on Agathon. And then
Right.
it's talking a lot about the Jensen Museum, this article I have here, and the Jensen convertible. So I don't know if that was like featured prominently in the movie or whatever. So that I thought was pretty compelling, although it's not it's not a smoking gun. But like me, I think along like where you put the car connection in the book, I have the movie connection pretty up there. It's interesting that you just mentioned the Nazi theme, because a lot is made of the most dangerous game and whether the Zodiac influence is the literary influence or the film influence. And I actually pulled up all of the most dangerous game remakes, and they go from like the 30s to at least the 70s, which would be relevant to the Zodiac crimes, but well past that. And there's even one that's like a Nazi rendition of the Nazis letting loose their war criminals and killing them. So between that and I don't know if you've heard this thing about the movie Shock Corridor from 1963. That one character puts on the kind of Ku Klux Klan pillowcase, and it has a cross circle logo on it. So I don't know. I just tend to wonder if that's a thing, given you have him painted as like a right winger when he writes that letter that how you found him to the editor, and he references like Hitler in there. I always wonder if there's not some like underlying weird white supremacist like Nazi belief in Zodiac. Not that he ever outright says it, but there's kind of these peripheral things. That's my total speculation.
Also sold Volkswagens when it wasn't at all popular to sell Volkswagens, because Hitler had created those.
Yep.
The basic design of them, if not the engine.
Yeah, that contradiction you pointed out of Hitler as this massive threat. We don't ever want him to come back in his letter to the editor, but then you're like, yeah, but this guy had no problem with when he's importing the Volkswagen. So I felt like you got him on that contradiction.
It's called irony.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was good. I mean, guys, I think you should read the book.
And Zodiac, according to Richard Walter, Zodiac loved irony, but irony isn't usually like power assertive killers usually don't use irony because it's a little more sophisticated, I guess, than the usual power assertive. He said that usually sexual sadists would be the ones that use irony, but Qvale and Zodiac both use irony.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I just want to say, if you got it right, and I don't know if you do, but you have a compelling case in your book, if he went back in his house and then changed and came out with his dog or whatever, because like he saw the cruiser and he thought like, oh, maybe I need an alibi or whatever, that might be the most power assertive thing ever, is doing the crime, basically getting away, not being ID'd, and then coming back outside and having another officer question you, like, what are you doing out here? I'm just walking my dog, and then he just goes right away. I mean, that is like, wow. Well, that's
exactly a conversation that Richard Walter and I had, because the conventional wisdom is the Zodiac got scared that night because Falcon Zones look at him, and that's why he never killed again. And I brought that up to Richard Walter, and he said, no, it's actually the opposite. He said that he got a double dose of power that night because he outsmarted the police twice, and that's what allowed him to stop killing and just write the letters as opposed to committing the murders, because he had all the power he wanted, I guess, from the murders that night.
Sure. Yeah, he achieved his apex. He got to brag in all the letters about the blue meanies and I'm crack proof. I'm so smart. Well, whatever, assuming that he, the killer is the letter writer. And then it's like, he can make the argument that, he kind of did if they saw him twice and didn't stop him. I referenced it earlier, the mention of Bohemian Grove, and you guys were saying that, Lindsay could have been intimidated by Qvale because he wanted to membership as well.
He did.
I'm pretty interested in this avenue because, again, I've always thought Zodiac, and this is like my first foray into Zodiac ever. I always felt that he was a member of one of these groups, and maybe I'm way off. I mean, I'm not as deep as all you guys are. I'm still working through my research, but once you hit on Bohemian Grove, it caught my attention. I mean, we've all seen the old picture of Reagan and Nixon and how it's like the boys club, but then, you know, you kind of do have that video of, and he's not my number one source, don't get me wrong, The Dark Secrets of Bohemian Grove with Alex Jones, when they are lighting the mock sacrifices on fire under the owl god, which would seem to be like a Zodiac type of slaves in paradise type of, you know, satanic ritual. So I don't know. I think that what you said about, you know, everybody has a public persona, a private persona rather, and a secret persona, as you said, if I just didn't botch that. I mean, that kind of Bohemian Grove thing is where you can let the secret persona, you know, run rampant, you know?
Well, you know, what's funny, the funny side story about Bohemian Grove, with all the people I've spoken to, I also spoke to a lady named Margot St. James. And Margot St. James was actually Paul Avery's wife. But she was also a advocate for prostitution, and she apparently used to organize prostitutes to go up to Bohemian Grove during the meetings.
Yeah,
to
that's well known.
You know, to meet and greet.
Well, no, I mean the rumor is male and female prostitutes, but yeah, that's been around forever.
She organized a group called Coyote, called Cut Out Your Old Tired Ethics, Coyote. Which was a group for prostitutes. So just sort of a side, diversion there.
Nothing surprises me about what's going on there, but like, you know, I was always thinking like, you know, because of Mount Diablo, you know, you have that sort of, you know, Diablo is devil, Satan. So I always thought that could be Zodiac's, you know, metaphor for satanic beliefs. But, you know, the Bohemian Grove thing certainly caught my attention because I think there's a lot of, that's a massive unknown aspect there. And I was always probably thinking maybe a group like Church of Satan, just because it was so prominent in Northern California in the time we're discussing. But, you know, Bohemian Grove never really caught my radar, and that's kind of the big, you know, secret society, if you will, the Bay Area one. I don't.
Right. He was definitely a member. He was definitely a member. That I found a reference to what cottage or something he used to stay in at the time. So he definitely was a member of Bohemian Club. That's not something that people usually, you know, let on, but
yeah.
It's very hush hush. Very hush hush.
Agreed. Exactly.
And an important aspect of the Bohemian Club is it was originally founded by journalists, so he could rub elbows there not only with Henry Kissinger and Nixon, but also with the publisher of the Chronicle and all the higher ups of the Chronicle. And Holly did some excellent research that proves that Qvale knew Herb Cain, and also that amazingly and really interesting, a really interesting aspect of the case is that Qvale would have known Count Marco. And of course, the Count Marco letter was the last Zodiac letter sent in 1974.
Yeah, I like the Count Marco letter, and I thought you and Holly both did a good job lining that up. The Herb Cain connection is interesting, and then of course, like you said, most importantly, control the media narrative. I mean, honestly, you know, it seems that seems to be you know, high up on Qvale's list, and we know Zodiac wanted that. So
in the book called Lunches with Mr. Q, there's a whole section about you know, how Qvale ran his business, and one of the things is called care and feeding of the media. So he was very conscious of the media and very conscious to, you know, he did that 1949 spread in Life magazine where he drove a car through a lumber carrier. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but, you know, that was sort of a who's that guy? Who ran the circus? I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, P.T. Barnum, a P.T. Barnum type of thing.
Barnum and Bailey, yeah.
Yeah. He ran a car under this thing called a lumber carrier, which is a wide vehicle, and he was able to get the sports car under it to show how small it was. And you know, so things like that show that he was very, very media savvy.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think you nailed that in the book. We'll go straight to the bus bomb terrorist map. Rodelli's interpretation. I tried really hard to get it to gel, Mike, and I don't know. I mean, it made sense. Really? It definitely made sense, but I just break it down for my audience. It just maybe you can, you know, articulate.
Well, what happened was, I mean, I was familiar with the bus bomb.
Yeah.
But what I was doing was I was looking at satellite photographs. They're really grainy and really bad back in 1999. I think when I was doing this, August of '99, I think I did this. And I was looking at, because I was trying to see where Zodiac would have hidden, you know, in the park, you know, in the Presidio, what kind of cover there was, you know. I mean, I know it was 30 years later, and things would have been different. But I was just trying to get some idea of the lay of the land there. And as I was looking at these maps of Presidio Heights and the aerial photographs, I realized that there was an analogy between the map of Presidio Heights and the aerial photograph, because Presidio Heights consists of 5 streets that run from east west, and they run down towards a thing called Presidio Terrace, which is it's oval, it's not round, but it's very reminiscent of the circular timer.
Yep.
So what I did is I took the bus bomb and I filled in the names of the streets. Let's see, California, what is it? California, Clay, Washington. I forgot the names of the streets now. It was a long time ago. But there's five main streets. Yeah. There's Jackson, there's Washington, there's California, there's Clay, and there's something else. So I wrote them all in, and then I looked at it, and I saw the Presidio. I saw that the circle could be Presidio Terrace, and I saw the direct analogy between the map and the aerial photograph. So then what I did is I took Jackson Street, and when you look at the timer, not the timer, but the little circuitry box, that's sitting almost on Jackson Street, on the north side of Jackson Street. So I thought, well, maybe that's a home on the north side of Jackson Street, but which one is it? And then there's another part of the map that shows that the circuitry box is set back from the street. They show a street with a bus on it. And then they show the circuitry box set in with 2 parallel structures. And I realized that Qvale's home, that there was one home in Presidio Heights on the north side of Jackson Street that was really set back in off the street. In fact, the front of that house is equal with the back of the house next to it. So set way back in, and it has a walkway and a driveway. And I said, I'll bet you that that's the house that this map is pointing at. But I wasn't sure which one was Qvale's at that point. So my friend at the time, Ken Narlow, was taking his wife into San Francisco to have dinner on a Saturday. And he said he would go to the neighborhood and take some pictures and try to figure out which house it was. And and I remember the pictures he sent me, I still have. They're dated they're dated September 11th, 1999, 2 months before September 11th, 2 years before September 11th. And sure enough, the house that was set in back off the street was 3636 Jackson Street. So it was Qvale's house. So I realized at the time, and I still feel this way, that the bus bomb wasn't actually a bomb diagram at all. It was actually a map of Presidio Heights that pointed to Qvale's house. And I have a whole chapter on that in my book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, again, like, I think there's something there. It's just, again, I feel that, like, Zodiac, like, works in metaphors. So a lot of those things are kind of, open to interpretation.
Well, let me tell you what I didn't do. I didn't start with the conclusion that I'm going to make this map, I'm going to make this diagram into a map of Qvale's house. I didn't do it that way.
100%. No.
It happened organically, it happened from observation.
Yeah, I agree with your process. Ray, you have me worried in no way, shape, or form, Ray. You have my email, Ray. You can challenge me to the debate anytime, bud. Fully confident what I would do to your suspect. So don't worry about it, Ray. You can get that scheduled anytime. But again, you can see I'm not giving that Mike that treatment here because his circumstantial argument is well established. So you said that I was questioning the composite sketch, Mike. I really wasn't, but you said that Toshki had comments on the composite sketch, but I didn't see if you said what Toshki's comments on the composite sketch were. So I don't know if you and
Toshki said that he regretted putting out the composite sketch because he didn't really know if it looked like the guy or something like that. But Toshki never interacted with the eyewitnesses. I spoke to a guy named Gus Carreras, who was one of the other detectives there. In fact, Gus Carreras is one of the Carreras and his partner Fatinos are the ones that solved the zebra murders. And Gus was very, very nice to me. He was a very nice man. He passed away now, but he said that those kids were damn sharp, and that he was 100% behind their sketches. He was the one that was in charge of getting the kids together. The different detectives were given different jobs, I guess. Toshki and Armstrong had the main investigation, but Fatinos and Carreras were the ones who got the kids together with the sketch artist. So they were the ones who were most involved with the sketch, and Gus felt that the sketch was very good.
Excellent. Yeah, I wanted you to clarify because I didn't have that background personally. Mike has some videos on his channel. I recommend you guys go subscribe over there and go watch them. I'll get Mike's channel linked up here so you can click it right there in the video. your background on horses, Mike. You came up with some interesting stuff. I really like your argument about Qvale being conscious of. I messaged you about this, but I know you had some complications on the messenger, so I don't know if you saw it. Qvale of being conscious about horse saliva being tested for chemicals, and you made the point that he doesn't need to know what for what, you know, in that case it's performance enhancement for the horses, right? But he just needs to know that it's possible to test saliva. I agree with this sound reasoning. So you made the argument in your book, the videos, that, and again, you are right about the questionable methods of testing the front of the stamp, blah blah blah. I recommend you watch Mike's videos and read the book to see exactly what he said about it. But you are of the opinion that they do not have Zodiac's DNA. If you want to go in on that a little bit, and I'm gonna pull up Rich's new article, which
not only my opinion, the science points in that direction. I'm just using the science that's come out and the 2018 whistleblower. It all points in the same direction. They don't have his DNA, and they may never get his DNA from these letters. It's not. People make it sound like it's a simple thing. He licked the stamps and envelopes, just analyze them and get the DNA. Well, if that were the case, they would have had it 20 years ago, because they got the DNA from the two forgeries, the 74 letter and the 78 letter. In 1998, when they were using horse and buggy type of analyses, the methodologies back then were so primitive. But they never got Zodiac's DNA, and there's no evidence that he licked the stamps and envelopes. I don't understand what's so complicated about that. People make a big deal about it, but they seem to think that these envelopes are going to magically yield saliva when the techniques get more and more and more sensitive. Well, why would you need more and more sensitive techniques? If he licked the stamps and envelopes, his saliva would be all over those letters. You'd get it easily. So I'm sticking with my guns. I think that he didn't lick the stamps and envelopes, and I think that the whole modern day chase for DNA is a ruse.
Yeah, you made a good argument. I honestly, I can't push back, because I don't know where I lie on this. I always kind of went with the mainstream narrative, and then you kind of punched some holes in this, and now I'm questioning it. Let's see what Richard Grinnell recently said about Mike Rodelli.
What did Grinnell have to say about it? Because I don't see how he can argue it. I mean, I don't see how he can argue it. It's science. I'm arguing science. What is he arguing?
He doesn't agree with your assessment whatsoever. He claims from your argument that you have debunked yourself based on your own statements. What has been presented here shows that the claims of Mike Rodelli are completely backwards. His own words have effectively argued the case that the Zodiac Killer licked both The Exorcist and the 1978 letters by making statements such as, in 1998, using very primitive techniques from that time, Kjell was reportedly able to, Kjell was reportedly able to isolate DNA from the two forgeries that matched each other. The notion that the 1978 and the Exorcist letters were those forgeries has been completely dismantled. If Alan Kjell found a DNA match between the 1978 letter and the Exorcist letter, he found a complete DNA profile of two genuine Zodiac Killer letters and the Zodiac Killer himself. But will Mike Rodelli now reverse course and realize he has made a grave mistake and correct these errors? He has written 2 books and made countless forum posts and videos pushing his narrative, so the answer is no. The consequences of abandoning this narrative will come at too great a cost. The most disheartening aspect of this whole story is that anyway. Care to respond?
Well, it's not like, see, his argument is not with me, it's with Alan Kjell, right?
Yeah.
He's saying that Alan Kjell found Zodiac's DNA. Well, Alan Kjell told me they were forgeries. And if they're forgeries, I have to assume he know who wrote them. But he wasn't telling, because he said he couldn't remember, he couldn't remember which letter was the 1974 letter. Well, obviously that's stupid. I mean, he knows which one it is.
Yeah.
Like if you learned who John F. Kennedy's assassin was, you wouldn't forget his name. When you're doing work on the Zodiac letters and you find that one of the 74 letters that everybody thinks is a Zodiac letter isn't a Zodiac letter, you would remember which one it was. The only reason I say this, the Exorcist letter, it's very simple. There was a chart that Tom Voigt got from SFPD in like 2000 or 2001 that shows all of Alan Kjell's work, and the only 1974 letter he had analyzed by the time he left that lab was the Exorcist letter. That's the only reason I say it. I mean, I'm just using what Kjell said. So if Richard Grinnell has problems with what Kjell did, he shouldn't be arguing with me. He should be arguing with Alan Kjell.
Tom Voigt's in the chat. I don't know if you're following along, Tom. If you care to expound on this, because now we're in a bit of a crossfire between Rich is disagreeing with Rodelli, but yeah, it sounds like he's disagreeing with Kjell. If Rich comes up again, we can have him clarify his platform. But I would just say go see Mike's videos on his channel, and of course check out the book. I thought Mike did a pretty good job of breaking the DNA, because I'm glad I have you and Tom and everybody to rest on, because I'm so confused with it. I don't agree with the testing of the front of the stamp and just certain things that have clearly gone wrong. And then you had that other expert weigh in on the whole process and how the amount of cross contamination was just through the roof. So I'm very
the reason that they analyzed the front of a stamp is that they could not find any DNA under a stamp or in the seal of the envelope that they knew they come from Zodiac. So they sampled the front of a stamp. The front of a stamp is a dangerous place to sample because it's loaded with contaminants. And unless you have the same DNA from like 4 or 5 different envelopes from the outside of the stamps, you can't say that that's Zodiac's DNA. SFPD knew this. They knew they didn't have DNA from the Zodiac in 2002. It was a ruse. They were playing a game with Zodiac. They wanted to see if they could scare him.
Yeah,
that was the whole.
I tend to agree how they kind of brought you on, and then they kind of bamboozled with you. And guess what? Our big reveal is going to be at DNA. It's like, okay, you're just telling us now, and this Ray just doesn't seem to be understanding the format of my show. He doesn't understand why I have longtime Zodiac researchers on and expects them to agree with one another. I don't expect them to agree with one another, Ray. That's why, Rich has his opinion. Mike is going off the science he was told from a primary source. And if it's a, debate they need to continue, should Mike be interested, I think the Rich and Rodelli debate would be an excellent one for my debate series, should they both care to and agree on it together.
Listen, like I told you, if I said the sky is blue, Renell would say it's green.
And that's
everything I say he has a problem with.
And that's why the debate would be so entertaining for my audience. But again, I'm not pushing you guys into it. I'm just I'm just putting it out there. That was all of my main question list. The car, there's a lot. Okay, so hold on. The Exorcist letter, right? The only problem I have with the Exorcist letter being a fake is like, Tom, anybody, Ray, feel free to push back on me. It's like, even though he doesn't say this is the Zodiac speaking, it's like the Exorcist letter is the most Zodiac content. I'm not saying it can't be forged, but just from a literary.
Right, it's a strange letter. It's a strange letter, right?
It's the most Zodiac-esque content. Like, I think you would agree with me, Tom. The Exorcist letter is probably the most Zodiac tone thing ever, because he calls The Exorcist horror movie, which is considered the most hardcore horror movie at the time, the finest satirical comedy he's ever seen. And then he does the Tit Willow Mikado haiku, which he apparently, messes up, or he doesn't say it in the right, cadence, or, whatever it's supposed to be key. But I don't know. I would be surprised if it was that one, Mike. Again, I don't have the, behind the scenes, context.
Your arguments with Alan Kjell, I think, because that's the only letter he analyzed from the time he left. Unless he analyzed other 74 letters after he left, I don't know.
I'm sure there's a lot of things behind the scenes. I don't know. Again, I thought you killed the car connection. There was a comment earlier about the Badlands letter, and then there's supposedly that reference to the horror movie The Car. And then one thing I do want to highlight Rich on is he said I believe it was The Peak Through the Pines, or relating to the Donna Last correspondence, he said that was a reference to the movie Vanishing Point, which isn't that like some sort of like racing car movie? And then Qvale told you he only watches racing car movies. So you actually have a bunch of car movies that are possibly referenced in the Zodiac corresponding. I don't know if you do anything with that, Mike.
Plus the TV show Z-Cars from Britain.
Yes.
I talk about the end of the book.
You killed that in the book. That Ford, so it was the 2 cars you said, and that Ford that you posted. I thought, a lot of people make a big deal about the watch, but it says Zodiac on the hood, and then it's blurry, guys, but I don't know if you have this on your website, Mike, or just get Mike's book, the cross, apparently, whatever you would call that, the logo of the Zodiac card. It's a little more square than Zodiac's cross circle logo, but it's the cross with the word Zodiac, so I was like, damn, Mike's got to be close on that. I thought you were close on that one,
Someone from like Sweden or something corrected me on that. They said that car, I don't know if they're. I mean, I guess they know what they're talking about. they said that car is a Zodiac Mark III, and the Mark III wouldn't have had a Zodiac symbol on it, or wouldn't have had that symbol on it. I think the one used in the show was a Zodiac Mark IV, which would have had the symbol. So apparently that symbol on that particular car may have been added afterwards. I don't know. I don't know enough about these cars. No.
I would say, I don't either, but I would say the British Z cars show that tracks with the Anglophile angle of Happy Christmas and, all these other things that are supposedly British references.
Shall and all that stuff.
Shall, and then so, I could see him watching the British television. We have a shout out to my man Restless Dreams. Does Qvale have a military background? He actually does. Mike covers this in the book in his research.
He was in the Navy as a pilot.
I think, let me see if I can find you have the training picture in the book, and I thought you did a good job on this.
Shooting the guns.
You questioned Qvale on his Navy career experience, and he essentially told you, like, I've never held a gun, but you essentially verified that pilots in that program essentially had firearms training. I don't see why they wouldn't.
Right. He said he never touched a gun in his life, I remember.
That was bullcrap.
He lied to me about a lot of things. I asked him about his Norse connections, about whether he kept up with his Norse roots or whatever. He said no. And then when Lunches with Mr. Q came out, they talk about he used to hold Norse themed parties at his house where people would get dressed up in traditional Norwegian clothing. So there was a lot of things he was not honest with me about, including that building that he happened to show him into the go, which we talked about a little bit.
Yeah, that was, again, I mentioned that earlier. I think one of my favorite parts of the entire book, this is actually something I recently direct messaged Tom about, because, I've always heard the stories of the three unconfirmed, I guess what we call it, non-public, not unconfirmed, but the three non-public Zodiac letters. I hope I'm allowed to say that, Tom. That's something I came from him, but you referenced... Yeah. Do you see where I'm going with this? So you referenced the supposed Zodiac letter to the DMV, and that was near the end of the book. Letter. That blew my mind because that totally tracks with the car connection. So I'm like, damn, if Mike has that is the freaking cherry on top, in my opinion.
Well, if anybody would have had an issue with the DMV of Zodiac suspects, it would be Qvale, because he had to deal with all the red tape and all their laws and regulations for years, and so I could see him being angry with the DMV.
Importing.
We never were able to prove that letter exists. It's a holdback, and they're holding it back at the expense of solving the case, I think.
Well, Tom was your source on that. That's what you said in the book, right?
Yeah, but Tom was supposed to meet with some guy, and he never met with him, or something like that. There's something that there was a connection that was missed, or something. And the guy got fired from the DMV, not from the DMV, but from the DOJ or something, and then the meeting never happened. He never got the letter, so it's frustrating. But it's tantalizing to know that Zodiac may have written, of all the departments and all the California, he writes a letter to the DMV.
No, and after Z cars and what you said about the Zodiac 4, just like I was like, it was lining up good for me. I don't know where Tom's going with this. They never knew Arthur Lee Allen lived 6 blocks or so from that phone booth. He's obviously referencing the phone call. I get where he's going with that. Just because Tom brought this up, you have the SLA letter, the double meaning metaphor subliminal for SLA is that it means kill in Norse, which is what the thing says. Here would be my devil's advocate, Mike, is with the Norwegian stuff, and again, I don't like ALA as a you see where I'm going with it. They said what his great grandfather was Norwegian, so they say that the runic Norse references would apply to Allen as well as Qvale. I'm sure you don't like that, Alan.
I don't think that the person in Presidio Heights applies to Allen, though. So
just repeat.
The person that the witnesses saw in Presidio Heights does not apply to Allen.
No, I agree.
What I said is that the person that the witnesses saw in Presidio Heights doesn't apply to Allen. So.
No, not at all. I'm just saying specifically, the runic background, the Norwegian references, the SLA meaning kill. That's all I was doing with that.
Let me tell you about Allen. This is my opinion of Allen. I spoke to Sandy, whatever his last name was, Sandy, one of his friends, not the guy that accused him of saying that he was going to become the Zodiac and all that. Don. I talked to Sandy, and Sandy said that Arthur Lee Allen liked messing with the police as much as Zodiac did. I think that what happened to Arthur Lee Allen is he knew he wasn't Zodiac, so he threw all these clues out about himself, and he made such a good case for himself that when he wanted to just say, "Hey guys, I was just kidding," nobody believed him. And so he ruined his own life by making himself seem like Zodiac when he wasn't.
Yeah, that's what I think too. So Tom was able to correct me on the Exorcist letter thing. He signed it Titwillow 3 times, and the actual text is "Oh Willow, Titwillow, Titwillow." So he was probably just writing it fast, Tom.
Well, like I said, if you look at the list that Tom got from SFPD back in the day, the only letter that Qvale had analyzed by the time he left SFPD from 74 was the Exorcist letter. That's the only thing I'm saying. Whether he analyzed anyone.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Left, I have no idea.
Oh, crap. It was, okay, that wasn't Alan. My bad, Tom. He was, no, I knew that Mac Duff lived near the phone booth. Yeah, you've heard of Morph Suspect, Mike. I'm sure you take him or leave him, but...
he lived.
I don't know.
I know he had a big to do with the wife, and I know that he apparently he would show you handwriting, but he would cover up the part that didn't match or something like that. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Ray's stirring the pot. I'm gonna do it, Mike. You can take this question or leave it. Did you get this rumor in Zodiac lore that Voight and Butterfield duped you for the files and replaced them? Disclaimer: Tom is in the chat right now. Ray just asked this. Did you get the police reports from Rodelli?
Tom and I had a conversation about this. He knows what happened. Yeah, he knows what happened. Butterfield duped me out of the. I was given the Solano County files in 2001 by sheriff there, and he told me not to share them with anybody, so I didn't.
Yeah.
And when I was speaking to Butterfield about all the things that were going on in 2006, he said, Could you give me the Solano County reports just so I can verify that the stuff in my book is correct? I want it just for my personal use, he said. And then he somehow got it into Tom's hands and then ended up on his website. And the reason I know they're my files is because there's one piece of paper there. I crossed something out, and that very piece of paper with the cross out is on Tom's site. So I know that they're my files. Tom and I had a discussion about this, but Butterfield, when I called Butterfield out on it, instead of being apologetic, he attacked me. So
I hear you. Just trying to clear it up. These are the rumors you hear. I think Mark Anthony is a little late to the show. Can you please go deep into what happened on October 11th? You've actually interviewed the Robbins kids, and I was curious about the female who came back to give the second police sketch. Is that Rebecca or?
Yeah, that was Rebecca.
Yeah. Mark.
She was the one. She was at the upper window.
Yeah,
she was at the upper window, and
quite literally 2/3 of my interview with Mike is on this topic, so I think you just came late, Mark. That is basically. Let me check. I think we did the UFO thing, like I told you. I'm a huge UFO guy. I thought that was kind of peculiar. He brushed it off.
Qvale was the only credible person out of like 800 people they had 800 cases they had in that book who said that flying saucers were from outer space at that time. Most people were either afraid to or reluctant to or whatever. But Qvale, dove in knee deep, right away. And he got in on the ground floor of the flying saucer sightings by establishing himself as someone who knew what he was talking about and saying that flying saucers, not only from outer space, but he said in the one article that he wished that they would land and tell us where they were from. So he believed in little green men too.
Yeah, he said they're from outer space. I mean, that's probably the one thing that, me and Qvale agree on. But then again, that was way back then. So the flying saucers could have been the Russians and he went straight to outer space, which was interesting.
Right, it could have been the Japanese, could have been the Russians.
Yeah, the enemies. Yeah. I never heard this one. Go ahead. He's saying 2 weeks before Stine's murder, the downtown SF Wells Fargo was robbed, and he handed the teller a note, hand over all the money or I shoot, Zodiac. I'm sure Tom's heard of that one. I don't know that one.
I have never heard of that one. But,
I've never heard of that one.
I'm sure a lot of people use Zodiac to try to commit crimes. The name scared people.
This is a question for Tom. I'm going to ask it because Tom's Tom. When is the last time Rodelli had contact with Ed Neal?
Long time ago.
Tom seems to know. He said that robbery was not in 69. I'm not even going to go into that. It's Morph stuff and Mac stuff. That's all I have for you, Mike.
Wait, let me just say one more thing. Ed Neal dumped me. I don't know if this person's trying to say I push Ed Neal out of the way to take credit. I wanted Ed Neal as my partner. Ed Neal dumped me unceremoniously in July of 2000, and I never heard from him again since.
Yeah, I don't think that's what he's getting at. I think he was just asking the last time you guys talked.
Well,
Before
Ed
I'm out of
was my
questions.
partner, and then he wasn't my partner.
For sure. I'm out of questions, but since I asked Mike offline before we went live and we were kind of having technical issues, one of the highlights that in my opinion, I know this might be a small footnote to others, is the Peekaboo Pennington ad. And this, if this is the of course we're referring to the Peekaboo You Are Doomed Halloween card sent to Avery. And I don't know, this tracks, I think Mike could be on this. It probably leads to an older suspect, which is as per Mike's research, because you could weigh in, Tom. It'd be pretty difficult for like a younger guy to have seen this. They'd have to really go back through the microfiche. So, and then of course you said Pennington was a partner of Belli, and then of course Zodiac sends a letter to Melvin Belli. So I don't know. Check out the circumstantial case, guys. I really like his Mike's Peekaboo Pennington angle. That was the first time I had heard of it personally. So.
Blind Bat. That's the person who developed that ad from the Yellow Pages. A lady named Blind Bat.
Awesome. Yeah, I was super impressed. I had never heard of it, so I was like, wow. I was like, damn. I mean, whenever you see something so specific like the Peekaboo, and then like you said, Pennington's whole, his whole thing, which was kind of, the exploiting the rich guys or whatever, which seemed to be like a Presidio Heights kind of neighborhood thing. And then you even saw the one TV episode, which you said was like almost an exact mimic of Pennington's career. So all kinds of stuff there, guys. All kinds of rabbit
Perry Mason, the case of the fraudulent photo, FOTO. That's the one where you see Pennington in action, basically.
Absolutely. But that's it. Any final words from my audience, Mike? Greatly appreciate your time. Love your work.
Oh, I appreciate them. Hanging in there in the beginning when we were having the technical difficulties. I thought we would have lost everybody, but we didn't. So thanks for everything.
They waited for us. Thank God. The links.
I hope you'll buy my book, and especially if you like it, review it on Amazon.
Links in the description. Go subscribe to Mike's channel, MikeRodelli.com. Feel free to email him specifically if you have something good in the shadow of Mount Diablo. Hopefully talk to you down the line.
I talk about DNA on my YouTube channel, which is, I think if you put in Michael Rodelli, all Rodelli, all one word, you'll come up with my YouTube channel, and you can see all the videos that I did personally that talk about DNA and RPD and other issues.
Absolutely. Been talking to Holly behind the scenes, so we'd love to talk to you guys again, Mike. Greatly appreciate your time. Book is amazing. You saw my review. Of course, you guys can see Jim's review on there. It's like, the people Mike's worked with, highly reputable. So I highly suggest you guys check out the book, mostly because it's just, he gives you the direct circumstantial evidence. He doesn't graysmith you. That's pretty much the biggest compliment I can give you, Mike.
Yeah, I think so. I don't graysmith anybody. That's a verb now, graysmith.
The graysmithing, yeah, we've all been using that one quite a bit.
I don't give the graysmith treatment.
For sure. Thanks a lot, Mike. Greatly appreciate your time. Thanks for doing the interview.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.
Thanks a lot, man. Buy the book. I'm going to take us out of the show. Thank you.
Bye. All right, bye.
Guys, Mike Rodelli. Shout out to everybody who came through. Shout out to Holly. Shout out to Ray. Shout out to Tom. Definitely appreciate Tom coming through. You dropped a couple dates on us there. Thank you to my boy Dion. Thank you, Holly. We'll be talking to you. I'm not sure what Tom's giving us there. We got to let's see. I think let's go back to what Tom said when he first came in there. I think he said something. He said something pretty important here, but I'm gonna have to go. Oh crap! Sorry, Tom, I missed this. I'll message it over to Mike if he can relaunch his original website. I don't suppose it's on the Wayback Machine. There it is. Boom. Tom can do other shows now that his case file episode got released. Everybody go troll Tom on the Tappa Talk, ZodiacKiller.com. That is the forum. I'm on there, Planet X Gorilla, myself, Brian, my co-host. Did I miss anything else? You never know. Buy the book. by the book, Zephyr. See if it changes you. See if it moves you. I was, again, like I said, I was pretty low, but you know, things lined up. You guys can see what I didn't like. I'm looking for a heavier guy for Zodiac. Dion will get you. It's on Wayback Machine. The Zodiac Files, episode 10. You can see we're back in full swing. Mike Rodelli, Kjell Qvale. Mike kept hitting me up like, when's the interview? I was like, I gotta read like the 400-page book, dude. It's not the easiest thing in the world. And this isn't the easiest content to digest. Like, only Tom Voigt, who's looked at this stuff for 35 years straight, can actually extrapolate it in an understandable manner. Appreciate everybody who came through. 1,000 subscribers. There is going to be more interviews. The Zodiac Files episode 4, the Gaviota Beach Murders, is coming soon. I don't know who's coming up next. There's been a lot of requests for, I might get my boy Ned DeHaan up here with me. And there's a couple other interviews in the works behind the scenes. Dion, we won't leak anything that's, you know what I mean? Not out there in the public sphere. Like, sub, share. I appreciate you guys for all coming through. Thanks for everybody who got me over 1,000 subs. There's the episode over on Beeson's channel of myself and Nikki B discussing the Riverside activity and our recent trip there. We did the test of the Tom Voigt Zodiac's Dark Alley theory, which is referred to in the Riverside confession letter. So there's a little short, if you check the shorts videos, you can see the walk and talk video there. I basically came straight out of traffic from work for this interview, so I don't really have much anymore for you guys. I'm gassed. I'm gonna shut it down. Drop me some likes, subscribe if you haven't. There will be more content. There will be tons of more interviews. Like I said, by summer, we'll be in full swing, guys. We'll be in full swing. The memberships, if you like what you see, you can join in the memberships button. That's actually, there's 3 levels of the memberships. There is the Gorilla, the Inspector, and the Vigilante, if you are a Zodiac hunter like myself. I also recently launched the Patron, so there's 2 levels of the Patron. That is, I'll be posting on there as well. That is the Gorilla and Inspector levels. You can check out both of those. Of course, we have the comic book on Amazon. Like, subscribe, share. You can join the memberships, join the Patron. That's all I have for you guys right now. Big shout out to everybody that came through. Appreciate Tom, appreciate Ray, appreciate Mike, appreciate Holly, Dion. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. A question for Tom, what do you think of the bus bomb letter and Z's diagram of the bomb? Could it be him pointing to being an electrical engineer? Horn's the man, dude. I love those debates. Oh crap, you know, I forgot to ask Mike while I had him here, if he cares to get the Grinnell debate going. Well, actually, I kind of did mention it, but I didn't ask him flat out, so I'll message him about that. I think that's the debate. It's Rodelli versus Grinnell. That one has to go down. I'm out, guys. Like, sub, share. Hope you guys appreciated the show. Good times, fun times. Keep the likes coming in. Keep the subs. Like I said, memberships, Patreon. I'm out. Appreciate everybody's support and all your viewing. Spending your, what is today again? Tuesday night with me. Thank you.